der Livestream der Nürburgring Langstrecken-Serie. Präsentiert von Falkenreifen.
Herzlich willkommen zur ADAC RUHR-POKAL Nürburgring Langstrecken-Serie.
Welcome to the Nürburgring for the NLS, the Nürburgring Langstrecken-Series.
Und jetzt ist das Rennen freigegeben.
The red lights are out now.
Viele Zuschauer unterwegs.
I would think that's very, very close.
Jetzt kommt er ran, zieht sich ran.
It is a beautiful morning in the Eiffel Forest and we're all set for NLS 7. It's the 6-hour race, the ADAC RUHR-POKAL-RENNEN. Packed grid of cars, really competitive qualifying, and this is what a lot of the drivers live for, racing at the Nürburgring all year round, but something very, very special about the summer. It's been a long, hot summer so far, and we have actually been warned that got to watch out for any snap fires around across Europe, and particularly in the south it's blazing away. Here though, hopefully all is fine in the Eiffel Forest. My name is Bruce Jones. Always enjoy a Nürburgring Langstrecken round, particularly if I have my co-com Peter Snowden alongside. So Snowy, all set. Snowy is one thing it isn't here. It's hot.
Absolutely, it is. It's we have got to watch for that to say no barbecues, please, today.
Yes, absolutely.
Anywhere on site.
No, entirely.
Cars on track or off track, for that matter.
Yeah, 6 hours, just got to stress that, because the regular race length, of course, is 4 hours, but this race traditionally a 6-hour blast, and qualifying done and dusted, and really the story there is that the pole was taken by a driver who's on his return, having fractured some vertebrae at Bathurst back January, February time. Ralph Aron, he put the Winward Racing Mercedes on pole by half a second. He's a tough nut, and that is some comeback. You know, anybody who's had a neck or back injury is going to be very wary. And I mean, what circuit will sort you out the most? The Nürburgring Nordschleife. 25 kilometres of ups and downs, lots of G-force in the car. But clearly Ralph would have done a huge amount of gym work, an enormous amount of physio, and that is accolade. Just that ability to go, I know what I was before, and I want to be that again. So, astonishing performance from him, Snowy.
A testimony to also the strength of the cars these days, because that was a horrific accident at Bathurst, completely unsightly, with a Porsche that had just turned 90 degrees and blind, and Ralph came through and just hit it side on. But both cars doing their job as designed and constructed. A short flash fire, I think there was, on the Mercedes of Ralph there, but at the time, but he got out of the car himself, albeit somewhat gingerly and tenderly at the time, but he did get out of the car. But also a testimony to the fitness level of these drivers these days, that they can both walk away from that. Many years ago, that might not have had the same result.
No, and indeed, I mean, I was having this conversation last night with someone who said, is motor racing a sport? And his angle, he's a contrarian, is that they're not physically doing anything. And I said, sort of au contraire.
Wow.
You know, maybe Duncan Hamilton in the 1950s did the wrong sort of training. You know, but drivers now, they're under so much G-force, and they know, particularly when you're doing a longer race like a 6-hour race, particularly when it's hot, you have got to be fit. Otherwise your performance, your attention will drop away. But also the reason that Ralph was a professional young athlete, and I say that advisedly, has recovered so well is because he's a professional young athlete. And it's like a lot of people, when they get injured, if they're sports people, they recover far faster, because their body is always, particularly if you're, let's say, a rugby player who gets lots of knocks, you bounce back because your body has been made resilient. And but it still takes an awful lot up in the upstairs, up in the head department.
Well, that's the two things to it, isn't it? Because there was a quote from one of the consultants many years ago when Emerson Fittipaldi had a big IndyCar incident, and he said at the time, given his age then, which I think he was certainly into his late 40s, mid-late 40s by that point, and he just said, had he not been as fit as he was, no way would he have recovered that. But as you say, it's also the mental side of it.
No, it really is. Can I still do it? And, you know, a lot of drivers are never quite the same after a big one. This seems to be going down a bit of a rabbit hole, but let's look forward. But it's just testament to the fact that he got himself here, and he didn't do it by just going, I'm fixed. He made sure he was fixed. So Ralph Aron, fantastic job from the Estonian driver. Car's going round to the grid at the moment, but not everybody's getting there. One of the Cup 3 Porsche, just body put back down. That's the Kronbach car number 982. Hopefully that can be fixed, because we're very nearly going back. But I tell you what, as always with the Nürburgring Langstrecken-Series, we do qualifying and racing on the same day. Let's take a look back at how qualifying went. Of course, it's going to be quick fire all the time. Oh, trying to just get out on the track at the moment. Some more Cup 3 Porsches trying to find their way out. Not everybody managed to get out without damage, so a little bit of repair work for VW. And then riding on board with the 48 Losch Motorsport Porsche gave us a chance to see the conditions out on the circuit. And it was a case of looking to see who was going to be making the moves. Of course, you have a lot of drivers that come out and literally do one lap, come back in, hand over to someone else. One of the cars going very nicely was the FK Performance BMW at that point. And the number 5 Porsche always goes well. Black Falcon, they know this circuit forwards, backwards and sideways, and they were working their way up. Gabriele Piana very much making progress at the wheel of that. And again, still pushing, enjoying the perfect condition. Walkenhorst Motorsport always in the mix with their Aston Martins. Car 35 driven by Christian Cronjes and Ricardo Feller. That was going to be one of the quick drivers and combinations. The era Mercedes going better and better. That would end up in 4th place overall with Jake Hill at the wheel. And Gamotta Racing, they really have just done so well through the course of this year. New team making strides. 3rd fastest to them for David Hahn. 2nd fastest went to the house racing team Mustang, car number 64. Frank Stipler at the wheel. But the driver, as we said, who came out on top was Ralph Aron, back from a neck injury, and he took pole in his Winward Racing Mercedes, looking fabulous in its blue and gold livery. So job well done. Unfortunately for the number 1 BMW, for Dan Harper, that stopped out on the circuit, so that made sure that pole went to the number 80 Mercedes, and there it is on top. Luca Stoltz, Ralph Aron, that's going to be a really strong crew. 6 hours of racing ahead. 2nd place for Kolb and Stipler in their Mustang, and 3rd, Antal Zigo, Moritz Krantz, David Jahn, and Felipe Fernandez Laza. So Mercedes, Ford, BMW, 3 different makes in the top 3. Fantastic qualifying. 6 hours ahead for the ADAC RUHR-POKAL-RENNEN, and we are all set for that. So let's see how the race will unfold ahead of us. And by the way, Era Motorsport 4th for Tilly, Christodoulou and Hill. Let's see what they can do in the race. But there we are, back in the pit lane. Fans in shorts and T-shirts. It's a warm summer day in the Eifel, and it couldn't be more different from the opening round of the championship, if you remember, where it was too cold to play. And that is very much the nature of the Nürburgring Langstrecken-Series. You race across all the seasons, and certainly that is something that is part of the equation here. The circuit remains the same in terms of its shape, but then of course it doesn't change. It does change enormously according to whether it's sleeting, sunny, raining, cloudy. We have the lot on the Nürburgring, but right here, right now, 1st of August, and we are all set for some racing. And just a little chat before we came on air. It's 50 years on the nose since the future of this circuit was threatened, with Niki Lauda having an accident that nearly claimed him on the Nordschleife, and it's testament not just to Niki for his recovery to fight back and very nearly win that 1976 Formula 1 title, but testament to the safety that has been built into the circuit since then, with the remarkable feat of not changing the nature of the circuit. And it was probably a matter of consideration at the time, but look, here we are 50 years on, Snowy, and the circuit has never been as busy as it is now. It's never been a bigger draw than it is now. Of course, we don't have Formula 1 on the Nordschleife. Gosh, that would really be massively exciting. You and I would just go, hands up, let's do it. But here we are, look down on the grid. This might not have been a scene we've seen, but it's down to all the organising clubs and the circuit that they have made it safe. They've got all the marshals, thousands, who work here and keep the drivers safe.
Proof, if it ever were needed, that there is life outside of Formula 1.
1,000,000,000%. A bit of something in the track at the moment.
Driving out of the pit lane there. We mentioned earlier about Ralph Aron, and not just you said the testimony to him of coming back and not saying, I am going to be fit, but actually doing it. And that was something that Niki Lauda said about that accident. He was asked many years later about it, and he said, just remember, he said, I didn't break a single bone. He said, for me, it was just mental. Yeah, and that was that typical of him. An extraordinary incident that he recovered from, and obviously the severe lung damage and stuff. But to him, it was absolutely pragmatic. I didn't break a bone. It was all about getting myself fit mentally. And
mind
coming back and nearly winning that championship, as you say, by losing it by 1 point because he retired from the race at the end because he deemed it wasn't safe.
It wasn't safe because his eyelids were burnt, so he couldn't blink in rain coming in. But
a minor distraction.
But since then, in the past 5 decades, mind management in all sports has become a thing. Back then it wasn't, and that was just down to Niki Lauda being an unbelievably dedicated, focused individual. And what I can tell you, we're riding just around at the moment. His car's getting used to the circuit. Gabriele Piana, his car, the Porsche from Black Falcon, starting in 10th place. Every single one of the drivers in the top category, and almost all the others, the young drivers coming up racing in, I don't know, the M240i Cup or whatever, they will be fitter than Niki Lauda was back in the period, because it's something that's understood now that to get the best out of your car, and it's not just in terms of your physical entity, like the strength to drive it. It's the fact that that fitness brings clearer mental acuity, clearer focus, because your body isn't having to work as hard as if you were, you know, sweating the kilometers. So there's so much of an advance. Car safety, circuit safety, rescue crew safety and the equipment they have to do things, but in terms of drivers themselves, and of course with all the analysis you can do, every single line, every single throttle application, single braking force, there is so much to learn. You can't just rock up at a weekend. Well, you can just rock up at the weekend, but don't expect to find yourself at the front of the grid.
Yeah, it's just changed fundamentally over the years, and there are so many more layers to it now. And you should look at some of the older cars back in the the 60s, 70s, possibly even into the 80s at points in, let's say, Formula One and World Sports cars, Group C cars, that kind of stuff. To compare both disciplines, a driver's weight was vital to the team, so that it didn't add much to the car, not so much as it is now about fitness and strength. It was you wanted a light driver because your car weighed less. These days it's all about being able to hang on to that car, and my racing mentor said to me many years ago, said the reason you need to be fit is very simple. So tired drivers make mistakes, and in endurance racing, that's the point, and we're going to get this proven today from a 4-hour race. We've got 50% longer today, so that gives teams, it presents opportunities as well, but it presents opportunities in the sense of if you have an early error or any kind of problem, then you've got longer to recover, but equally it can work the opposite way. So all sorts of opportunities. A 50% longer race, and I say 50% than our standard NLS race, which is 4 hours.
Yeah, and some of the top crews are doing it with just 2 drivers, so they're going to get, well, let's do the maths on that one, about 3 hours each,
Yeah.
So it depends how they sort of peel that out.
2 hours each, one does 4 hours. Yeah.
That's right. Yes, entirely.
You can tell maths is my strong point.
He's mad.
Yes. Get out of the car now. Oh, okay. Yes. Is it my time? Yes.
Your time is up. So
yes.
Pole position, just to stress that point, it's Luca Stoltz and Ralph Aaron. Ralph, the Estonian driver, just coming back, if you're just joining us now. Fractured vertebrae in his neck with an accident horrendous incident for him in the Bathurst 12 hours, where he came round just around the dipper. You've got no line of sight. Suddenly there's a car sideways in the track, and he was a complete passenger. But he's come back from that, and what's he do on his return? He takes pole around the Nordschleife. So that is definitely something he can put on his CV, feather in his hat, and what that will do in terms of boosting his confidence. Because you can be sure he wouldn't have been as confident as normal, but he's gone out and proved it. But conditions perfect, and you think back to across the years, how many times we've been sitting with the cars in our commentary box, the cars approaching the grid, thinking, will the race happen, will there not? Because we've got fog, we've got, and obviously you can't be racing here if you cannot see from one marshal's post to the next, so that's often an issue. Sometimes it's too cold, sometimes the snow, not in July. In fact, I'll tell you what, we're in August now, of course, it's the 1st of August, so we're moving through high summer. And again, the strength of the Nürburgring Langstrecken-Series, we had 134 cars on the entry list, and just double checking how many got through qualifying setting times, 132, so more than enough to be going on. And of course the 6-hour races will gain extra drivers who are sort of seconded into the team, with a regular crew. 2 become 3, 3 sometimes become 4, and the popularity of the NLS has never been greater. And also, I say this year on year, and it has credence year on year, the simple fact, the level of preparation, the standard of the cars just continues to rise. Motor racing is this. If you stand still, you're going backwards. And, it sounds like a glib little motto to put out there, but it's entirely true. It's the nature of the beast. So, beautiful warm day. The pole-sitting car still working its way up the packed order. Must be some way back, going past the TCR car, but then it gets to the world of GT4s, which will be running the SP10 class. But yes, the cars at the front end, the cars from SP9, internationally They are from the GT3 category, which has just been a storm-away success. And here we are 20 years on from the foundation of GT3. The numbers just grow and grow and grow. They're now historic series. You were at Silverstone last weekend for the BRDC Classic and you went out to watch it. I was commentating on it and it seems bizarre. It was a toe in the pond. Road cars effectively upgraded to become racing cars, and it is in every continent in the world. And I was assured last weekend, there's even a group of them racing out in Guyana in South America. So, you know, but the fact is a lot of those cars will be called back because they might be needed for the historic scene here. And if you happen to have a car from about 2013 in the back of your garage thinking, what can I do with this old thing? Well, it's suddenly doubled in value over the last year. Racing around Europe, the GT3 Revival Series and other series as well. So it's great to see, because some of the cars were real favourites, like the BMW Z4, because it just made the best noise in GT3 form, because to compete in GT3 it was given a V8 engine, which we all know makes a rather lovely rumble. So it's good to see them. It's cars you haven't forgotten, but you look at the liveries, you then look at the names on them and realise that Christopher Haas drove pretty much every car.
Yeah.
One of those names that's still written above the door as they were when they were competing, let's say, in the Nürburgring 24 Hours in 2013.
And it's great to see how those cars have evolved, because we're celebrating 20 years of GT3 this year. So obviously 2006, I was lucky enough to take part in the second year of that in 2007. And you look at the Porsche that we took part in 2007 now, and it was, you've just said a road car turned into a race car. I wouldn't say it was a race car, it was a road car turned into a road car put on the track.
Yeah.
It was no disrespect, but my point is how it's evolved. You look at them now, even you say that, just that little bit, so we're talking 20 years, 06 to 2026. You mentioned 2013 there with the BMWs. Even by then, so, you know, 5-6 years into it, they'd suddenly, to start with, it was just a road, just a bit of silence that we got on the track that the car went around. Something silence dropped off something, so the loudest car going by, there it is, that's where you need it on the track. But you look at those cars from 2006 to 2012, let's say 5-6 years, 2013, totally different. They're suddenly evolving into, the early cars were very much a road car with, you know, probably obviously a roll cage, all the safety stuff and whatever you'd expect, but, you know, a better gearbox, a bit of tuned engine, bit of suspension, slick tyres, yes, but it was very, very relatable to your road car that you went and bought, particularly things like 997s, and Aston were one of the first to really change that with BMS originally ran them, and Prodrive DBRS9s, and they were suddenly they had sculpted carbon wings and anti-dive planes and splitters and diffusers, and all of a sudden they're going, whoa, this isn't a road car, it's got an Aston badge each end, and good for them, and it sort of led the way, and everything else followed suit. And of course, once one team or manufacturer does it, somebody else has got to follow suit, because they're suddenly 2 seconds quicker or more.
Yeah, put it this way, the historic racing series, for cars from 2006 to 2013, there were no cars from 2006 in the field, because they'd be so far behind.
Yeah.
And a figure I was told, and I'm not sure which circuit this was for, but the step forward in pace is gargantuan. Absolutely astonishing. And also the jump forward wouldn't be so, I think the biggest leap was towards the 10-year mark. And then after that, they've eked forward. But the beauty is that the manufacturers go through a cycle and they get to an Evo model that will pick up the pace. But if you put them side by side from 2006 to 2026, and you say it's the same formula, and likewise GT4 cars have come faster and faster and faster. But anyhow, one of the beneficiaries of this is this very series of NLS events. Because the cars, the contemporary ones are racing here, the ones that are a few years old will still have a place on the grid here. GT3, GT4, you know, across the various categories, but the sheer number of cars in the top class is also testament. So what have we got? We've got 21/20, possibly 22 cars competing in the top category. But also, as we see the pole-sitting car, Winward Racing, Mercedes team, sort of American-German team, if you will, both sides of the pond, the level of preparation of their cars is just something else. Some of the great liveries we're seeing, and this is another form of expression. We saw that massive fillip for the Nürburgring 24 Hours and 2 of the NLS races earlier in the year, with Max Verstappen taking a weekend away from racing to, well, go racing. And that's turned eyes to this. We already had our eyes on it, or wise people did, but a lot of new faces, are looking at these events. And how can you not be beguiled by the sights?
We've been telling you for years.
Yeah. Finally, you listen.
I think this is Windward Racing's first return to the Nordschleife since the 24-hour. I don't think they've taken part in any events in between. I'm sure it's their return.
Oh, you could be right. I have to look that up in my book.
But I wasn't testing it there, by the way.
No.
It's an observation.
It's a need to know. That could well be the case. But, you know, that is the thing. You know, some of the teams are very busy globally, so they can't afford to do all these races if they're competing in a championship that doesn't have many rounds. You know, Windward would be competing in the GP World Challenge America. They're competing in Europe. And actually, if you are a top work-supported driver, I'm thinking of someone like a Maro Engel, you could be anywhere on the planet at any time. The air miles they must be clocking up, just truly extraordinary. Now, we shouldn't just talk about the very top class. We ought to talk about other classes too. And of course, okay, SP9, the top class, that's the GT3 cars. You've got the Pro Crews. We've got Pro-Am. The best of those is well ranked. It's in third place overall. But of course, it's not one of those championships where the AM driver has to set the time. So that's probably set by one of the pro part of a Pro-Am equation. And you've got SP9 AM as well. But then after that, you've got special class AT1, which has always been an interesting class. It would be a GT3 car, but running with alternative fuels. It's alternative technology. The next class, and we've got quite a few of those. And again, a lot of manufacturers really do use the races on the Nürburgring Nordschleife as a test bed for their technology, and why not? The manufacturers use the circuit as a test bed for their road cars and held in enormous esteem. But the next category down will be Cup 2, and in fact, because I said the top class is so well supported, the top Cup 2 class cars a little further back than normal, back in 25th position overall, and time in that one, just double checking Cup 2, it was a car number 902. It was Renhofer who set the time. That's always a really competitive class, but in fact every class on the Nordschleife gets so well supported. And just seeing who Raphael Renhofer's racing with Ryan Harrison from the United States and Leon Vassateurer. So if it's the first time you're watching or listening to us on Radio Show Limited for NLS, we have an incredible moving cast of drivers. A lot of drivers are competing other places around the planet, but a lot of people come here because they've got an eye in doing a whole season in this next year, maybe trying to see if they can compete in the Nürburgring 24 hours. But it's just the draw of this event, and for a long time there used to be quite a lot of Japanese drivers coming because they love endurance racing, and particularly on the great circuits. But now it's global. You look down the entry list that goes on and on and on. As I said, we had initial list had 134 crews on it. Let's say the average crew is 3 drivers. Do the maths on that one. Let's call it 400 drivers between us as friends. So you get a lot of people, and you get a lot of people who drop in just for one race to give it a go, but you have to earn your license as well, Snowy. That's one thing to be able to step up to the top categories in this. Yeah, so you have to get what they call the ring permit from ADAC, and doesn't matter who you are in the world or what you've done and what you've experienced. We've covered that enough earlier in the year, but you are required to do 2 one-hour races are in a lower category car, so a Cup 2, a BMW or whatever it may be, GT4 Cayman, something like that, and it has to be 2 separate races. Two where you've got to complete. So basically, you've got to show that no matter where you've come from or who you think you might be, or indeed what your racing record is, you have to still go and do the Nordschleife and do it to their rules. So that's where, when we have the double-header one coming up, rounds 8 and 9, so 2 4-hour races, then that's where you can. It's a great opportunity for drivers to get their ring permit on the one weekend. 2 races, job done. But the point about that, it's not that they don't trust you with one of the front-running cars, but it's important to understand what it is to be in a car of middling performance, because the quicker cars will come past. Then if you're aiming to race in SP9, you'll understand what it is to be in a car that is being approached, where to put your car, and also in the middle of the field, you'll be doing overtaking from the slower cars, being passed by the faster cars. It's all part of the equation. I think it's such a sensible rule.
the insight I was given a couple of years ago when the then BMW junior team, you mentioned Dan Harper, Neil Verhagen and Max Hess in that car, they were asked to do a lower class BMW.
Can I just
of course.
pause that thought?
Yep.
Just seeing something on the tail of one of the competitive cars there, and it said, "Thanks, Simon," and this is in memory of Simon Clark, technical manager of Yokohama, who sadly died in a motorbike accident in the middle of July. So Simon would have been at the Nürburgring Nordschleife a lot. Schubert Motorsport, it's their BMWs. Jens Klingman, Ugo de Wilde and Tim Tramnitz, and one of those really, really sad things, but lovely to see a tribute to Simon there. Sorry, I did interrupt you, but just as the car was shown, I felt it was a moment to pick up on that.
Yeah, sad loss to anybody, and nice to see that it's been honoured and respected on the back of the. Was it BMW? Wasn't it? I think
yeah, it was a bit number 77 BMW mysteriously with the Yokohama livery. So who'd have been involved with that car?
The point I was going to just make about the BMW Junior team category guys, and you said about getting the ring permit, and see, it's not about trusting, it's about being involved in the way the Nordschleife is run, the ADAC run it, was that the BMW Junior team were requested by BMW, because they're works drivers, to drive, I've forgotten what it was, I think it was a new M2 at the time, and I naturally posed the question of, you're normally driving an M4 SP9 GT3 car, you're suddenly in a lower category car, that must be it's odd for you, whatever, and must be discomforting. And they went, no, actually quite the opposite. A, we're paid professional drivers by a manufacturer, so we go and do that, tick, that's not a problem. But what was fascinating was, which I thought was a great insight into drivers' mind, was all three of them, or two of them, said it gave them a greater understanding of the race, being in a different category car, not at the front, of understanding not only how to let GT3 traffic through, but Dan Harper was basically saying he was watching and observing of how does a GT3 car behave, different parts of the circuit from a different perspective. It gave him a bit more time to watch that when he went back into that car again, how he would treat the different class category car. It was, and I just thought, fabulous. Turn it into a positive. Yeah. Look at it and go, right, there's more information, more information. I say this quite often, don't I, about whether we have a slow zone, or we don't have safety cars in this series, but cars going around at different times, different paces, and we have lots of data, whether it be weather changes, whatever the track conditions may be, slow zones, different parts of the track. They're always gathering data. It's always information that the team will then feed back to that driver of the car. Right, we've done this, we've looked at the file in 2000 whatever, 3 years ago, 4 races ago, whatever it may be, 2 races ahead sometimes, because some teams are that advanced. They'll say, this is what's going to happen, this is what you're going to do, and this is what you need to do, and they'll change a map setting or a diff setting or something, because they've got the information. The driver won't necessarily know that.
No, I mean, there are so many elements within a team, but it's the ability to process them. So what's happening now? The green flag is being waved, and our field is setting off around on a formation lap. And of course, this is a formation lap with a difference, because good grief, they've gone more than 17.5 minutes before the start of the race.
Formation drive.
Why have they done that? Because a drive in the country focuses the mind. No, of course, they're getting a sighter of the circuit. And you think back to, what should we call, days of inclement weather, when classically, particularly in spring and autumn, what weather you have on the start-finish straight here at the Nürburgring may not be what it's like even to Hatzberg, let alone to Metzgersfeld and all the points out at the furthest thing, because we know full well this is a circuit that can be dry in one quarter and very, very wet with the other. So it really is a sighting lap as much as a warm-up lap. A formation lap, of course, is the name. But anyhow, doesn't matter, wet or dry, it's a chance for the drivers to get a feel for the conditions. What we can tell you is the conditions are absolutely fabulous. It's a warm summer's day, not as hot, thank goodness, as it has been in the previous month or so. And I think back to when the 24 hours of Spa kicked off, I looked across and the thermometer on the new tower at the Yehuda Tower said 39 degrees. Multiply that by a certain factor for in-cockpit temperature. No wonder the drivers didn't want to do more than one stint at a time until we got to nightfall and conditions cooled down a little bit. So it's been hot. And again, if you're out around the circuit listening to us, or don't think about a barbecue, just have a cold sandwich, because we don't want any little flash fires, because of course the place, all of Europe, is like a tinderbox at the moment. It will recover in time, certainly in Northern Europe once the rain comes back, but I believe that's going to be October or sometime like that. But right now, it's hot and dry. And actually, I tell you what, looking last weekend I was at Silverstone, the grass, it was exactly the same colour as it is here on the start-finish straight, looking at the second group of cars going away. You felt as though you were looking at a race in Tunisia. Le Mans, like exactly the same a few weeks ago, and the difference between when the 24 Hours of Le Mans was and 3 weeks later the Le Mans Classic, it was like a different circuit. Whole place had crisped up.
Well, I know you were in the ivory tower of your air-conditioned commentary box at Silverstone last weekend. I jest. I'm going to move my chair away before I get punched for that one. I can assure you, driving an historic car around Silverstone last weekend, you forget, you mentioned about physicality. It's not about G-forces and slicks, quite the opposite, obviously, because it's historic cars on cross-ply tyres and stuff. But you forget how physical they are to drive. And I'd literally done 2 or 3 laps in testing on the Thursday, and just thought, crikey, I've forgotten how physical these things are to literally drive. But great fun.
I could just say you're getting old, but I won't.
Well, there is.
Luckily. So
Look,
say that.
Getting would be kind. Most people think I've got old.
Right, possible problem here. Black Falcon Team EAE and Gabriele Piana's just brought the car back into the pits. That's car number 5. So that probably means that I guess they'll probably be able to start at the tail of the first group, but from pit exit. So people rather being scattered there as they're walking back into the pit area. But that's brought in, and that's a car that qualified. Let's just look down the list in 10th place. So it wasn't the world's best qualifying for them, but they're in the upper half of the SP9 class. So work going on, and that looks as though it's the number 88 Porsche, which is the up to race entry. Yeah, it is, as we pan away. Tim Heinen will be driving that. But
now that had an incident in qualifying.
Okay, with Alexei.
Yeah, no further action was required, but it did.
Okay, so we're hearing news fresh from the pits that is a non-starter. Not surprised. I mean, but with a 6-hour race, if I was them, I'd get it out later in the race. But maybe, you know, I cannot see from a quick visit what the extent of the damage is. But you know, we like to see cars, whether they're challenging or just getting out and enjoying the Nürburgring Nordschleife. But again, that's the peril, and particularly, I guess, with the format of having.
Yeah, it had 88 had a collision with the M240i 667.
Okay, but we'd like to see them get out, because you know the whole point is to come here and compete on the Nordschleife and to drive it. So yes, it was exactly so. 88, as I see, yes, and no further action against the car with which it clashed. So anyhow, the third batch of cars now starting to take off on their formation lap. The race is due to start in just over 12 minutes, and it's 6 hours today. This is the 7th round of the championship, but we lost the first one, and in fact, the NLS 1 and 4 did not get on the scoreboards, but it's been a really interesting season so far. I'll just go through the winners. BMW in the opening round, that was Rover BMW, Dan Harper, Jordan Pepper. Second race that happened was NLS 3, and that was Schubert Motorsport, which was Philipp Eng, Robin Freitz, and Marco Wittmann. The next race was NLS 5, Scherer, Audi, Christopher Haase, Ben Green and Alexander Sims. And the fourth race that we completed, that was Schnabel Engineering with their Porsche, Sven Muller and Nico Menzel. So 2 to BMW, 1 to Audi, 1 to Porsche. What's on pole today? A Mercedes. Maybe they can buck the trend and put their hat into the ring. But conditions, perfect. For the drivers, on the hot side, but not as hot as it could have been. And again, sighters, but dry. Well, no surprise, there's been no rain for a good month or so. So it would be a little untoward. We had a sprinkle of rain in England the other day, it lasted about 12 seconds. And I guess it's been much the same across. Some rain further south, but it's a beautiful day. So here we are, the 1st of August. NLS 7 is almost upon us. 6 hours of racing and a really cracking grid of cars. 132 cars coming out to play. And just running down the makes at the top, it's Mercedes from Ford, BMW from Mercedes, best of the Porsches in 5th, Aston Martin in 6th, another Mercedes, another BMW, and 2 Porsches to complete the top 10 positions. So, you know, huge array of different manufacturers, a huge array of drivers, and a huge spread of nationalities as well. Year on year, the Nürburgring Langstrecken-Series gets more and more cosmopolitan. The televising of it is a massive draw. The reputation is growing all the time. And the clamour to compete is why we have a full grid of cars ahead of us for this, the seventh round of the championship. 6 hours ahead.
Einmal im Rennwagen über die Nordschleife. Ein Traum vieler Rennfans, der für die allermeisten nie Realität wird, mit dem neuen Gran Turismo 7 aber ein ganzes Stück realistischer. Mit der neuesten Auflage des Kultspiels für die Konsole fahren wir zu den wichtigsten Streckenabschnitten der grünen Hölle. Die AMG Arena. Erstes Nadelöhr nach dem Start und durch die unterschiedlichen Linien ein toller Ort für Positionskämpfe auf der Grand Prix-Strecke. Auffahrt Nordschleife. Nach der Vidol-Schikane biegen wir ab vom Grand Prix-Kurs. Hier beginnt der 20 Kilometer lange Ritt durch die grüne Hölle so richtig. Fuchsröhre. Mit Vollgas bergab, durch die Kompression und den Berg wieder rauf. Wie so oft auf der Nordschleife, kein Platz für Fehler. Breitscheid. Der tiefste Punkt der Nordschleife. Die Brücke über die Hauptstraße von Adenau ist ein Zuschauermagnet. Das Karussell. Benannt nach Rudolf Caracciola, einem der ersten Heroen des Rings. Die alten Betonplatten der Steilkurve sind Kult. Brünnchen. Der Zuschauer-Hotspot. Ob beim Rennen oder bei Touristenfahrten, ob bei brütender Hitze oder im strömenden Regen, hier ist immer etwas los. Die Döttinger Höhe. Windschattenschlacht bei 270 km/h und die Überholmöglichkeit schlechthin am Ende der Nordschleifenrunde mit dem neuen Gran Turismo 7. Und damit von der virtuellen wieder zur realen Nordschleife.
This place leaves no room for error. No escape. Just asphalt, adrenaline, and the legend. The green hell never forgets. It never forgives. Every corner, a fight. No room for weakness. The Nordschleife is no place for empty promises. It is the place where they are delivered. Engineered for the green hell. Official partner of the NLS.
Die Legenden der Nürburgring-Nordschleife sind unterwegs. Und zwar direkt zu dir nach Hause. Dank CK Model Cars sicherst du dir deine exklusive Erinnerung an den Besuch an der Rennstrecke. Unzählige Modelle findest du auf ckmodelcars.de oder im Shop direkt in Adenau.
Faltenreifen.
liebe Fans.
Lovely fans.
Besucht uns auf unseren Social-Media-Kanälen.
Follow us.
Auf Facebook, Instagram,
YouTube und TikTok. Willkommen bei der NLS.
Fields in dry, hot but not piping hot weather conditions. Again, it is perfection to my eye. The circuit, 172 corners, 25 plus kilometres. You have a little section on the Grand Prix loop. That's the place to get your overtaking in. But don't worry, it can still happen around the Nordschleife. It's just a much harder element to come around, to conquer. And of course, at the end of the lap, you have that wonderful long run along the Dottinger Höhe, the straight that goes on and on, literally just over the barriers and hedge. You've got a public road. But so if ever you're treated to a helicopter shot, you have, you know, Wilhelm with his caravan, and then the other side you've got 5 or 6 manufacturers going down the straight, trying to get the slipstream. And the drivers know, they know where they're likely to get an overtaking manoeuvre. Let's throw one more element into it. Traffic. Very, you know, not far into this race, because the grids are released, there are 3 grids. The third grid, which has the slowest cars, will be starting minutes behind this lot. So they will catch the tail of that after 3 laps normally. And then, your point, if you're in one of the lower class cars, one of the slower cars, and you think, oh, here comes a GT3 car running in the top class in SP9. No, not one, about 20, nose to tail, bam, 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 bam. So we'll get to that, and that is a moment where, of course, you tune around the turn, a driver in front of you might inadvertently be blocked, and then that is your opportunity. So anywhere on the circuit, after the 3rd lap, there can be overtaking. There are opportunities. If you only had cars in the top class, it would take a lot longer, of course, for the front runners to get to the tail. Also, if you only had the one class, you wouldn't have that massive speed differential. But we're all set. We are all set for 6 hours of racing. And to me, it's the perfect advertisement for motor racing. It's got the club driver, it's got the intermediate driver, and it's got the pros. It's also on the best circuit in the world. So our field of cars comes around through Schwalbenschwanz onto the Dottinger Höhe, the straight that just goes straight as an arrow until it stops going straight as an arrow and kinks to the left just before the end. But for people watching, maybe for the first time, an event on the Nürburgring Nordschleife, it is a circuit draped across the terrain, beautiful rolling hills and forests, the Eiffel forests in southwestern Germany. Conditions are perfect.
And just bear in mind that Dottinger Höhe, the kink you've just talked about there, in the top category, high-speed cars, the SP9s, the GT3s, they're taking that at 270 kilometres. That's 170 miles an hour in old money, through there, chasing one another, often trying to get a draft off them, i.e. sit so close they can steal the air off the car in front so they get an advantage. Yes, they are that mad and loopy to do that at that speed, whilst negotiating other cars. One of the best bits they get is the first, because we've got 3 batches, we'll see our first one's about to start the race. That first batch gets about a lap and a half free, if you're lucky, of racing with your peers. The rest of this is then in with the other traffic. So you can be chasing somebody and going through and trying to get a side draft, and then there's a slower car in front, because you've got every right to be there. So you've got to work your way around that as well. And then it just for fun, it drops down as well, and then goes up into Hurricane and Tiergarten, where all of a sudden it's just a roller coaster uphill. And just to concentrate you going onto the pit straight, there's a barrier on the left-hand side that you need to just kind of kiss. You want to just brush it.
Yeah, that is the enemy. It's almost like stinging the tail. Yeah. Fast, 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 quite fast, slightly slower. Oh my God.
Focus.
Really tight corner.
And breathe.
Onto the start-finish straight. So right now, the kink and the Dottinger Höhe, the leading cars behind safety car, just leading them around. Of course, the safety car will peel off into the pits, and then the drivers will come in 2x2 formation down the start-finish straight, waiting for the lights on the gantry to turn from red to green, and then boom, we're off racing. And the good news is there's plenty of space at the first corner, but is there ever enough for a field of ambitious drivers? I will leave that one out there for now. But let's just go down the grid. At the moment, we've got in the order, and Mercedes on pole for Winwood Racing. Hout Racing Team with their ever faster Ford Mustang second on the grid. Motor Racing just firing their way up the order. Their BMW is third on the grid, and Era Motorsport with their Mercedes in fourth place. Mercedes haven't taken the victory in the NLS this year. We have 6 hours on the clock, still 6 hours. It waits until those lights are flicked from red to green. The first corner, of course, turns them to the right. They go around the Mercedes arena, double back, and then not far after that, they peel right and go do a little cut through, go to the end of the Grand Prix loop, and then bam, they're off into the country over the Sabine Schmitz Bridge. Right, 2x2 cars as far as the eye can see, 4 lights, and they're all the same colour, they're all red. When they go green, there's going to be an absolute cacophony as this field blasts off. They look as though they're absolutely line astern. Some cars, some very ambitious starts from about 10th, 12th place on the grid, but our pole sitter, Winwood Mercedes, in the lead. From second, the Ford Mustang moves across the Hout Racing team. Person trying to make the move is Era Motorsport, trying to go around the outside, runs a little wide but hauls it back in. That's a good thing, because we go right, we go left, in behind. Well, I just may take my hat that I'm not wearing off to them, because that was very, very tidy for the first group of cars. And the main change was Era Motorsport gaining a place.
Christodula, yeah, in that.
Getting up from
car.
fourth to third. This is key, as I said, you want to get your overtaking done before you move on to the Nordschleife. For the Schubert Motorsport BMW running around the outside, that's the one with tribute to Simon Clark on the boot lid. It's being hung out to dry a bit, but I would suggest that's gained at least a couple of positions. But a neat, tidy start from the number 80 Mercedes. From pole position, it was put there by Ralph Aron, and that is very much on the charge. Riding on board with Dylan Pereira, perennial Porsche racer. He's with the 48 Losch Motorsport team. And at this point in the race, if you're just watching for the first time, you go, oh, they're racing on the Grand Prix circuit. Yes, they are, but not for long and not for all of it, because they've got far more exciting places to go and play, and that comes up soon. They go into the compression, up the rise to the chicane. First 2 cars making a bit of a break out of the chicane. Instead of looping round behind the pits, they turn left. Why not? Go left once, go left twice. That's the Sabine Schmitz curve. Very, very narrow there. And then a face full of forest, because suddenly they dive down to the left and start turning to the right. Then the hats and backs are upon them. But the opening shots, sensational, low-mounted camera angle on the bridge, having the car just flashing past. But then, of course, it's line astern. One of the runners in the second group has dived straight into the pits. I don't know which one that is as yet. Those are from Cup 3 class. That's the Porsche 718 Caymans. Second start, can they be as exemplary as the first of the 3 groups of cars? The answer is yes, I think they can. Is it going to be first and second on their grid order, going first and second into the first corner? No, because someone from third, fourth position has, well, momentarily shifted into the lead, didn't get the braking done, drops back to third. Actually, tell you what, very ambitious, muscling away and trying to get up into second place. But second group of cars is led by the Cup 2 crews, as you'd expect. 971, Franz Lindenani, Hofmeister, Eric Brown. Their car is at the front of that pack.
It was the Schmick Motorsport 960 Porsche that pitted from that second group.
No, well done.
So we'll keep an eye on why that is and what that's come in for. Obviously, when we need to change the choice of tyre, because nothing's changed particularly there. So there's something not right on that car at the start.
Super frustrating, isn't it? You go through the preamble, you qualify well, you're ready for your race, and then you don't get released. But it's a 6-hour race, so there is more chance. In a 4-hour race, it'll be much harder to make it back up. So the order at the front, by the way, is Lucas Stoltz in the pole starting car. He shared with Ralph Aron. Ralph set the qualifying time. Frank Stipper in the Mustang in second place, the Hout Racing team. Adam Christodoulou for Era Motorsport. Demoted Moritz Krantz, whose Motor Racing BMW had started third. He's down to fourth. Dylan Pereira up to fifth for the 48 Losch Motorsport Porsche crew. And Christian Cronjes, Aston Martin, into sixth place. So he started sixth and has remained sixth.
Just watching, keeping an eye very quickly on the Schmickler car. Just mentioned the 960 number. That has proceeded towards the end of the pit lane, but I'm just debating, is it coming out? Yes, it is. Looks like it's rejoining. It is rejoining. So whatever the malady was there, it's got out. Most importantly, it's just got out into its group still. It is clear air, but just ahead of the third starting group.
Yeah, that's a certain element of pressure that would have been upon the pit crew. Have you done everything? Well, I've done as much as we can, but it's more important to get you back on the track. You will be quicker than the cars in the third starting group. I mean, the very nature of your car is a higher performance car, but that was absolutely crucial. As long as it actually exited the pit lane.
No, it did.
Okay, good. I wasn't sure if it had driven to the end. And in fact, even in the third group, another driver has just dived into the pits. But looking on board with them. It's always interesting to get an onboard as you go down to the first corner, just to see this lot. Actually, I tell you what, the first two groups are trying 3 or 4 abreast. It's a little less ambitious down in the third group. They're largely 2 by 2, which certainly gives you a helping hand, gives you more option on your line as you double back to the right and then turn to the left. And of course, the corner where they always bunch is this, the one right now, the third corner of the Mercedes complex. It really tightens up, and the trouble is with that corner, it's tight left. It then goes to a slightly more open right, but there's very short distance between the two. And if you're out of position for one, you know what? You're out of positions for the other one as well.
We often describe parts of circuits as being technical as opposed to fast and flowing. It's pretty obvious, but the technical bit is exactly that. You have to think about it. You spend more time in a technical area of the circuit, therefore it is more pertinent that you get it accurate and smooth and precise, because others may not. So you get this suddenly tiny sort of left, right chicane or whatever it may be, and it looks like a tiny bit. But you spend so much time doing that, you have to be precise, because it relates to the clock as well, fundamentally to your lap time.
And they're sort of the least favourite corners. You know, drivers go into racing to go around fast corners quickly, don't they? That's the thing. But you know, your ability to brake and be accurate on your braking and get your car balanced is something, you know, some lead foot is not to learn for a while, but it is such a technique. You might think it's the less interesting part of racing, but it certainly pays dividends.
I love this new camera shot I've not seen before, which is on the Sabine-Smith curve, which is the hairpin left back onto the Hatzenbach, which I mentioned. It denotes the difference between the end of the Grand Prix circuit onto the Nordschleife, but I've never seen a camera mounted on that. I hope it stays there for the race, because looking where it is and how close some people get, it's looking back as the cars come through, and some of them are getting perilously close to wanting to be re-liveried or maybe thickness of a respray as they go by. That camera, I'm not sure that camera's going to survive 6 hours, but let's see.
Well, it's not the widest of bridges to go across anyhow, because between Sabine Schmidt's 1, the first, the left-handers, and Sabine Schmidt's 2, we'll go with a number sequence there. If you put your car sideways there, and we have seen it before, it leaves very little space. It's such a tricky corner, very easy to be over-ambitious in there, and the consequences can be quite testing.
Well, we've seen an incident, haven't we, where a slower car has perhaps taken that a tad slower than the quicker car behind anticipated. Misjudgment on both or one, either part, no blame being appropriated, but the car behind just tags it and turns it round. The problem is then it's askew the track, often 45, 90 degrees, but because it's so narrow, there's no room, and the steering lock on a racing car is minimal. You haven't got room to power flick it round, you can't do it on the steering lock, and you can't reverse across the track, because if you're on the left-hand side, you need to leave behind the car clear so traffic can go through, where that camera was talking about. So then it's down to the marshalling of somehow they've got to find a gap there and let you do a 15-point turn, which doesn't happen very often when you've got 160, 130 odd cars on the track. No. So it can be quite difficult. So
excruciating.
You don't want to be turned around at that point. No. No, but especially if it's not your own fault.
Yes, exactly. If someone is giving you that really not helping hand. Right, well, the order at the end of the opening lap seems to be staying relatively stable, with the Schubert Motorsport BMWs making progress. That we've seen. Top 10 getting very close to the kink as they run along the Dottinghoer, and the first 2 cars. Will it still be Lukas Stoltz leading in the pole starting Winward Racing Mercedes when they get onto the start-finish straight? He was certainly in front along the straight. 7th, 8th, 9th, nose to tail, end of the opening lap, and it's Lukas Stoltz from Frank Stippler, as they were when they got into the first corner. It's Mercedes from Ford. Another Mercedes, Adam Christodoulou, third for Era Motorsport. He's only 2 seconds down, so it's still tight. He's got 2.5 seconds or thereabouts over Moritz Krantz in the Komotor Racing BMW. But the big battling is a little further down the field. And the car to watch for is car number 1, the FK Performance Motorsport BMW. Dan Harper, that was a car that had problem in qualifying, and that is moving up the order very nicely indeed. Dan Harper 9th at the end of the opening lap, and he's only just under 10 seconds down the race leader, so that's still in the mix if he can keep picking off. The Ulsterman certainly knows this circuit incredibly well from his days in the BMW Junior team, and now obviously on the works book, so he's placed with various teams. So we'll keep an eye out on that one. And Dylan Pereira is having a lot of fun on the circuit, but he's at the sharp end of the field. He's in 8th place. He's all over the tail of Nico Menzel's car, and he's now on the tail of Christian Cronje's car.
I was going to say Nico Menzel's driven around the pair of them.
Yeah, Menzel's gone up into what would be 6th place overall. Yes. But again, at this point, they're on the Grand Prix part of the circuit. They go into the quick right-hander in the compression behind the paddock and then rise up the hill to the chicane. And by the time they've turned in and out of the chicane, they're literally about to enter. Just get the car vaguely balanced. Then you've got to turn double right. That's the Sabine Smith's curve. You go across to the right-hand side of the circuit from the driver's point of view. You take the widest line in as possible. And then bump forward. Well, on the second lap, at least the first 10 cars have left that camera alone at the end of the bridge at Sabine Smith's curve. Oh, Christian Cronje's Aston Martin very much under pressure from Dylan Pereira. But to me, beautiful summer's day, stunning cars, being driven hard by drivers in the front end of the field who know the circuit really well. And you know what? That's always being cheeky to those at the back. Some of the drivers with the greatest number of NLS appearances are people in some of the lower performance cars who've been doing it for a long time. I'm thinking of drivers who've landed titles before. Daniel Zils, Christopher Brink in there. You know, they've gathered championship. Actually, this is a point before the front runners get to the tail of the third batch of cars to explain about the championship. You score, you win your class. There is not a fixed number of points. It's not like you win your class in this event. You might come home in 40th, but you're still fastest, top in your class. You don't get 10 points for that. You get the number of points related to how many cars started in your group. So if your class is really well supported, then you're going to get a whole treasure trove of points. There are only 3 cars in your class. You're not. At the end of the season, the driver, doesn't matter what category, well, it is according to their category, you will be champion if your class had the, oh, that's interesting. We had one of the Audis towards the tail of the GT3 field going for rotation at turn 3 on the opening lap of the race. That was just out of camera shot at the first time of asking. And another, it would be ironic because the next car in line was an Audi and it did very, very well indeed. That's at turn 3, you know, sort of exiting the Mercedes arena. We talked about it. It's the left-hand corner that tightens and then suddenly you're turning right into turn 4, but didn't get that far before the spin. But the good news is the rest of that first batch of cars got away, got past, didn't clatter into it. But again, 6 hours of racing, you could be, what are you talking, 500 metres into the race and you could have someone just taking you out. But that was good news, it was all avoided. Just trying to work out which it was. Might be car number 6, because that has tumbled down the order. Yeah, down in 24th position. That pretty much tallied bottom end of the SP9 class. And driver on board is Alexander Croker. Didn't see if he was pushed. I think he just lost it on his own.
So we've got our first code 60, which is at Hatzenbach, and that's for a slow-moving. It's still 878. That's just updated. That's just been taken away. The moment I said it, it's been taken away from me. There you go.
The magic wand.
The left hand giveth and the right hand taketh.
And again, the race officials have to be really on their toes because a lot of the corners don't have a good line of sight. That's part of the mix of this circuit. So drivers have to be hyper aware, not just that there's a corner coming. They've got to double check if there are no marshals waving a yellow flag to suggest something they can't see is something they will need to see.
I think that's going to develop this. I tell you, it is a slow-moving BMW M2 from SRS Team Sorg Rennsport, car number 878, which has moved on from Hatzenbach. The reason it's been taken away from me is because it's moved further round. It is the flag procedure is following around, and 878, that BMW M2 has now stopped between Hatzenbach and Flugplatz. So that may well be our first code 60. It's covered by a yellow at the moment, a yellow flag. There's a green by the time we get to post number 79 at Flugplatz immediately, but just before it is stationary there. So okay. Indeed, it's become a code 120 at the moment, as the name would suggest, 120 kilometres, and they're really, really strict. They're just tying this into the ring permit. This is the one thing that you have to learn here. We don't have safety cars. It doesn't happen. Even in the 24-hour race, it doesn't happen at this event. What we do have is we have code 120s, more prominently is code 60s, which is a pink flag displayed 60k. It obviously goes from a yellow. They try and put it into a code 120 to bring you into it, but if there's a code 60, it is because there's a slow-moving car, which means marshals and officials have to attend to that car. If it's broken down, it needs towing in. So they deploy an intervention vehicle that will hook that up to that car. But we've seen and we know the narrowness of the circuit. There's not a lot of room to have intervention cars on here. So we slow that zone, that sector down. We, so officials do, we talk about it. But that's what we do. I say a collective we there. But what they do is they get that car to safety behind a barrier, the gap in the barrier, or if we can get back to the pits, if we can do, that'll be absolutely fine. But obviously everybody has to go through that zone at exactly that pace, which is 60k. And this is where we get penalties to look out for, because drivers may not see it at the right time, go into it a bit quicker, and they are draconian. Rightly so, because it's safety, because there's marshals on the track attending to this. That's just seeing a replay. That was Nico Menzel, wasn't it, going around the outside?
It's a very, very long way around the outside from 2. If you're on the outside at turn 2, you're not likely to get across to the inside in turn 3.
Yeah, but it's Nico Menzel.
It's Nico Menzel, so he hung it out all the way around the outside of turn 3. And Christian Cronus in his Aston Martin had to go, okay, you've gone around the outside.
Because he's a real slouch as well, isn't he? Not.
Hates the Nürburgring. just for some reason, just keeps rocking up here and doing very, very well indeed. And yeah, long-time Aston Martin racer, Christian Cronus, the Norwegian. But, you know, he's one of those ones who points out, I have to go now because I've got a day job. And in fact, racing on a Saturday means he can get home in time for, you know, getting his collar and tie ready for Monday morning up in Norway. But again, right around the circuit, the corners, you know, people know the carousel, that uphill banked entry into the bank corner, that left-hander that just tightens and tightens. You drop down onto the inside of the corner and it gets very rough indeed, and then you're spat out into another part of the track, and the classic corners keep coming. But a lot of the corners that don't really have names are still classic corners. It's just that, you know, it's like trying to name a dog. It's really hard. You can try to think of one name is fine. 172 names, not really working, is it? Trying to get everyone to agree.
More importantly, getting one that the dog responds to.
Yes. Yeah. Sit, wait, stay. Oh, never mind. Yes. Right, Lucas Stoltz.
It's called it fetching and never came back.
Lucas Stoltz leading after one lap, but a car very much on the move is the number 77 BMW, with the Yokohama livery that's pressing on very, very nicely. It's started by Tim Tramnitz, Ugo de Wilde, Jens Klingman will be getting on board at some point later in the race. And at the moment, 2 laps in, and our race leader Lucas Stoltz, still ahead of Frank Stippler, has gained 1.6 seconds on that lap. Now, just put that in perspective. You might go, that's an enormous gain. No, it's a 25-kilometre lap. So let's say we just divide it by 5. He's effectively gained 0.3 of a second on a standard length circuit around the lap. So Adam Christodoulou running 3rd overall, leading the SP9 Pro-Am class. And that's for ERA Motorsport with their Mercedes, Gamotta, with Krantz being monster at the moment because they're in 5th with their Gamotta Racing BMW. The Schubert car I've just been talking about, the one that's making ground. Tim Tramnitz is right on his tail in his black and red Yokohama liveried BMW, and tucked under his tail is Dylan Pereira. Dylan's carrying one of the many onboard cameras. This is forward facing, but rather fittingly, Maurice Krantz's one is rearward facing on the Gamotta Racing BMW. That's why we're seeing this battle so beautifully, because he's at the front of it. Already started getting involved in lapping. The front-running cars now just starting to catch the tail end of the slowest of the 3 groups of cars. And again, as Peter explained, it's how the front-runners go through that really, really counts. In fact, luckily for them, the fairly standard-looking production class BMW they passed was on its own. May have had its own problem, but they'll have others they'll reach where they won't be one at a time. They'll be in packs, and that's certainly going to make things tricky for the drivers. But it's part of the equation here, very much indeed. 2.3 seconds, the gap between first and second. 0.7 of a second further back to Adam Christodoulou. So he is actually closer to the second place Mustang than that Mustang in the hands of Frank Stippler is to our race leader, Lucas Stoltz.
I think the 878 Schmickler BMW has been put behind the barrier because it is still stationary according to my GPS tracker. Just before flew flags there, but we've got no infringements on track, no flags, no anything. So I think it has been taken to safety. So it's out of the way by the look of it, sadly.
Okay, well done for spotting that. So many cars to look at, so many to consider. I'm just going to run down the classes. We've got 2 laps on the board, and at the moment, obviously, it's SP9 class cars in the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a lot of positions, actually down to 14th place. We've got an alternative technology car, Dominic Fugel at the wheel of his Audi LMS. Best of Cup 2, always competitive class. It's still Raphael Renhofer. He's leading that class by about a second. And car 900 is now second in the Cup 2 class. And again, these are for 997 GT3 Cup class cars. and always popular, very, very quick in a straight line. And they just seem pretty much tailor-made for the Nürburgring Nordschleife. So Alexander Hart, the Black Falcon team, is second in that class. In Cup 3, let's just scroll on down. So the top Cup 2 class car is in 25th position. And the top Cup 3 class car, go a little further down, and it's Arnie Hofmeister, car number 971. He's made a little bit of a break and got a couple of another car from a different class in between, but 971 is leading the Cup 3 class at the moment. Arnie Hofmeister showing with Eric Brown. Beautiful aquamarine livery that goes towards dark blue at the tail, but he's got company aplenty, I think we could say, tucked in behind him, but for the moment out front in Cup 3. 6 hours of racing, most teams using 3 drivers, so the others have to bide their time in the pit lane, look, listen and learn. But a lot of the races that they're looking at here on the Nordschleife, it's just simply understanding that the weather could have changed by the time it gets to your turn. But right, let's also go down who's second and third in the Cup 3 class, because that's looking very competitive. 962 is second overall. W&S Motorsport, Lawrence Stegman at the wheel at the moment. He's sharing with Moritz Oberheim. They're volunteering to have 3 hours of racing each, because there are 2 of them in that lineup, like quite a few of the top end crews. Third in Cup 3, right on the tail of Stegman, is actually a little bit further back. It's car number 959, and that's Calvin de Groot from the Netherlands, showing with Heiko Eichenberg. That's SRS Team Sorg Rennsport. So those are the top sort of high-performing classes. Actually, tell you what, I've been a little naughty there. I'll skip past SP10 category, which is effectively for cars running to GT4 specification. And in that, it's being led. He double checks his screen again, because I had it, I looked up and I've lost it again. SP10, I tell you what, I scrolled down by mistake. It's Jörg Wiebart, car number 176, leading that class. Jörg racing for Pro Sport Racing. It's a Mercedes GT4 class car, and he's showing that with Yannick Himmels and Anton Abe. So they're waiting in the pits for their time in the race. And for at least one of those drivers, he's probably got about 3 hours until his turn, or 2.5 hours until his turn will come around. No, 3.5 hours. We've still got 5.5 hours remaining in the race, if they do the 2x2x2 format. This is the point in the race for a lot of the drivers in the front end cars. This is the first time they come across the cars, and each car they overtake, the next one they get to will be slightly faster, because they're working their way through the third group of starters with the lowest performance cars. Then in a while they get to the second group of cars, and they have to work their way through that, and work their way through it they will. But again, it's a chance for every time you're out racing, there'll be someone you haven't raced against here. Well, that's no surprise, is it? 132 starters, but again, we'll go back to the ring license. We'll refer to the ring license. It gives people experience that is just so vital in making this work. Number 18 Mercedes, Winwood Racing, Lucas Stoltz at the wheel, his teammate Ralph Aron on his return from fracturing neck vertebrae out at Bathurst in spring. He put it on pole, but Luca just roaring through the field. He's now started to pick his way past, I think actually he's just past the Cup 3 class leader. That's how much progress he's made, because Cup 3, they led off the second group of cars. So effectively, Snowy, he's overtaken the third batch of cars, the second batch, unless my sighting wasn't as good as I thought it was, but he certainly went past a Cayman of some shape. But it's worth pointing out they race in various classes, of course, the Cayman.
So I'm looking at, is Menzel right up with Tramnitz now in the Schubert? Yeah, he is, isn't he?
Yeah, he's caught
totally.
4th and 5th places were on their own. They had a few seconds advantage, but Nico Menzel in the blue, orange and red Porsche was in the group behind. He worked his way to the front of that trio. He's now almost close enough, but not quite, to get a double toe down the straight. But Tim Tramnitz, well, he's got the toe. In the battle of the BMWs, it's now Schubert. Even before they got the king, he's gone past the Gamotta. That's a good point. The Gamotta BMW, approaching the little bridge. Then the track kinks to the left. At this point, there's going to be a very nice toe for Moritz Krantz, but yeah, Tim Tramnitz covered it off very nicely indeed. But suddenly there's a Porsche came that does need to be somewhere, and it's in a bit of the somewhere they wanted to be. So that bunches them up through the final corner. 3 laps going on the board. Race leader, Gamotta Racing dives into the pits after 3 laps. I'm going to write that down on my piece of paper because that is, we expect them to go for 6 laps normally, sometimes 7 for their starting stint, but normally 6.
Actually, that's the reason that Bruce exactly said I'm going to write that down on my piece of paper, because you don't normally come in anywhere near this early. 3 laps sounds ridiculous. Remember, 3 laps are 25 kilometres. It's a long, much longer time, obviously.
Plus the formation there.
It's still not what we're used to on this. So, as you were saying about that Cayman there at the end of Tiergarten, who took advantage of that immediately? Nico Menzel. Yeah, all have a bit of that, thank you very much. Nearly had a toe off the end of it, then shot into the pits. Menzel now flashing his light furiously, not to the car in front of him, but the cars in front of them, to say we are coming through. So he's doing the work of the BMW for him, actually, of Tramnitz, just saying, I want them out of the way so I can have a go at you. If you're not going to flash them, I am.
Yeah.
It means business, doesn't he, Menzel?
He's left the iron on at home. He's on a charge. Right, they've got
a taxi booked at the end of this race. Yeah, exactly. Meter's running.
Yeah, and just going down the order, let's just refresh. After 3 laps, it's 2.5 seconds to go. Oh dear, it hasn't been the greatest of rates for the number 8 Porsche. I'm fairly sure Audi. That was the one that spun on the opening lap, I think. Anyhow, Selv is at the wheel at the moment, and he's the Russian racer, and he's trying to get it off the curb. Just trying to see, is that the exit of Sabine Schmidt's curve?
It is
no, it's the other way. It hasn't got to the end of the lap. It's
Tiergarten. Yes, Hohenreichen. Yeah, just at the end of that. Hasn't quite got there, but it's now seemingly stalled 90 degrees across the track. As we said, we described that, didn't we? Sabine Schmidt's curve and what a bit of jeopardy that can be. But that is now there. So there's tyre marks in there. So
it's the corner before the final corner. You're flicking to the right, and then you've got the left flick onto the start for straight. Maybe there's a bit too much flicking because his car is nose in to the apex of the penultimate corner, and Willem, Harry, Joachim and Franz are all going to come past him because he's sitting sideways across the track. Nobody's near him at the moment, but I don't know if the car's stalled. The front wheels are on the curb. The nose is on the grass of the car on the inside of the corner.
And there's no activity normally.
There is none.
When the cars normally start, we can see, often we see light cycling through on and off, whatever. Appreciate it's daytime, but we still see that cycle going through, which tells us that the driver is fighting furiously to get the thing restarted. Now there's an inboard shot of the car, literally. No, I can't be. No. Duff Pitt is going to say, sitting there straight, and suddenly the hand came in. I thought there's nobody attending that car, because you're not allowed any outside assistance on track, of course, unless you're in the pits.
Yeah, luckily the one we're seeing is the Gamotta Racing BMW in the pits. That came in from 4th place overall, but yeah, it wasn't a helpful marshal at Hohenrhein.
That's been there. So the Goss Racing, that's been there quite a while now, though, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. I just wondered if they came in with a puncture, but now the driver's got the door open in the pit lane because it's a warm day and he's sitting, and of course racing cars are heat soaked, but he's staying on board, so it's not something but it's in the pit lane. If it's going to be a longer fix, you push the car back into the garage. So it could easily, well, you'd thought if it was a puncture they'd have repaired it by now, but was there some contact, maybe the Gamotta Racing car against the Schubert BMW, the 2 BMWs side by side? The Schubert car went through down the Dottinger Höhe.
He's going in the box, I think.
He's going back in.
Yeah, he's putting full right lock on, so that's being indicated that it's going to be put on its jacks and put into the box, I suspect.
Because you certainly would not voluntarily pit after 3 laps. That puts you on a very different tactic to anyone else. And if you do the maths and you divide the race, they ought to be having effectively 5 pit stops in a 6-hour race. That's sort of how it works.
Then we have our first full code 60, of course, at the end of Tiergarten, Hohenreichen, for the number 8 Audi, parked across the track sideways, unable to get itself going, or unable for Selv to get it going.
Nice one. Nice footwork there. No idea what it means. Selv is the nickname of one of the drivers. A lot of drivers who compete on the Nordschleife like to race under a nickname, and in fact, if you look right the way down to Cup 3, there's a driver, he spells his surname a little differently, Alboreto. Oh, and how bizarre. The number 23 Gamotta Racing BMW has been pushed back in for its whatever brought it in from 4th place overall, and right alongside, trying to go through the same opening. You've probably got 36 other pit garages, but in the same opening they're trying to push one of the Cup 2 Porsches at car number 909 with problem unspecified. which is K. Kramer Racing, Peter Sander and Carsten Kramer himself. So I'll pick just empty.
Literally, you couldn't make it up, could you? You absolutely could not make it up there. So Nico Menzel still in hot pursuit of the BMW in front. Tramnitz, Schubert Motorsport entry. These cars 77 and 44. They're running 4th and 5th at the moment. Nico Menzel's dropped back a little bit now, but coming up to the carousel. And probably just cooling down a little bit, having a little think about where to get this. And of course, traffic can help you so much on this circuit. With these mentioned these huge speed differentials in different classes. So sometimes it can come to you almost like a parting of the ways, and let the car in front do the work. But equally, don't let it get so far ahead that you then lose out. You catch 2 cars, and this is always going to be the case here. It's never just one car you catch; it's going to be batches, and it might be multiple classes you catch at the same time. So you might catch a Cup 2 car that's having a battle with something else, then you've got your battle, and it all becomes really quite complex. And you've got to be thinking on your feet to work out where to do, and you can't just rely on that car in front.
No, I mean your pit crew has to be so clear in their checking the tracker map the whole time. What is the consequence of coming in now? When is that pit stop going to be? Where will I come out? You know you're coming out the pit exit, yeah, I know you know that, but where am I coming out relative to other traffic? You know, in a 6-hour race, where you can divide it in many different ways, break it up within reason, and just be aware that all it takes is a puncture, a little bit of debris or something, and your whole tactic is gone. But you know, you can make the situation better or make it a whole lot worse if you're not paying attention as to when you bring your driver in. And we know full well that, particularly in the races in spring and autumn, you're second guessing the weather. Imagine you just pitted and went, no, that's great, another set of slicks. And then you're partway around the next lap and it starts not just raining, Nürburgring raining, chucking down, you're coming in all over again. But you know, that's thing, and a number of times over the years we've seen drivers just drive past the pit, so the front runners in the field, and suddenly the rain comes and the cars from about 8th place down go, oh, bingo, we're coming in, getting the right tyres. But it also can dry here. But we're not looking at rain today, are we? I think we can safely say we're not looking at rain on the 1st of August in NLS 7 in 2026. It's hot, it's dry, and it's looking very, very good for Winwood Racing. As I pointed out before the start of the race, 4 NLS rounds have been completed thus far this year in a slightly interrupted season. BMW victory for Rover team, the opening round. BMW again, Schubert Motorsport, and they're going very nicely today at the moment. They're running with Tim Tramnitz on board in 4th place. They're looking good. So BMW from BMW, the 3rd race that we held was Scherer. That's the Audi team, and then Schnabel Engineering with a Porsche. No Mercedes wins thus far. We've got a Mercedes leading, Lucas Stoltz. We've got a Mercedes in 3rd place, Adam Christodoulou. We've got a Mercedes in 4th place. Am I repeating myself? No, in fact, we haven't got a Mercedes. No, I'm repeating myself because I shouldn't, because it's a BMW that I'm looking at, not a Mercedes. That's 4th place, Schubert Motorsport. 5th place is the Porsche of Gorian RT by Car Collection. That's the natty name of the team that Nico Menzel is driving for. Christian Cornius has dived into the pits, and that is a bit of a surprise. He's come in early. I was shocked that the Motor Racing BMW came in. Anyhow, that's clearly got a problem. But Christian Kronius has pitted after 4 laps, so that is a surprise. I wouldn't be surprised having some come on in after 5 laps or some after 6. But 3, yeah, there was a problem. 4, interesting.
So the Motor Racing number 8 Audi has been returned to the pits. There's it's now clear of the track there. Most interesting, that code 6 we had. The code 6 has been reduced, and we do now just have, and it's just gone clear actually, because we had yellow just approaching it still. It's now gone completely clear. So we're what the Americans refer to as full course green. So I thought it was a golf term, but
yes, I've never found the greens actually. Right, so what's happening? I tell you what is happening is the Mustang has had a better lap. Was it traffic, or is the fuel load going down and it's suiting Frank Stippler? Because he's closed the lead. Remember, it was out for just about 2.7 seconds, 1.1 seconds. So that's come right down. Lucas Stoltz leading still for Winwood Racing. Adam Christodoulou sitting 2.5 seconds down on Frank Stippler's Mustang in 3rd overall, and then he's got best part of 10 seconds clear of this fantastic battle between Tim Tramnitz in the Schubert Motorsport, repeat name and manufacturer, BMW, in 4th place overall, ahead of Nico Menzel in his Porsche. So a real mix of cars. And that's how we like it on the Nürburgring Nordschleife. Some other good performances coming in, still checking out the progress of Dan Harper. Remember, he started right down at the tail of the lead group, didn't get a lap completed in practice, and he's up into 7th place overall. Just having a little look on his speed relative to his rivals, and, well, it's obviously good because he's picking them off bit by bit. Of course, 2 of the cars in front of him have come in for early pit stops. One is still stuck in the garage, and that's Moritz Kratz in the Komotta Racing BMW. And the other one that came in was Christian Cronjes in the Walkenhorst Motorsport Aston Martin. Remember, that was fighting within the top 6.
So Adam Christodoulou in the ERA Motorsport Mercedes. That's new to ERA this week. First time they've run that car. No wonder they've drafted in an expert like Adam into that car. And very wise that he started. He started 4th and took it straight up to P3 by 2-3 corners in, wasn't it? He got the job done and settled down there. 4.2 seconds adrift at the moment. But that's not insurmountable at all in such a long race.
Right, what we don't get to see very often in these races is McLaren, and one's going very nicely at the moment, and that's the Ben Deur driven McLaren 720S, and that has just gained a position. It's just gone past the Mercedes of Pro Sport Racing with Stephen Palette, driver. I always go Stephen Palette Audi for so many years. He French racer raced one, but he was seemingly unable to do anything about the pace of the McLaren that just worked its way around him, and now the Mercedes, Stephen Palette's got a bit more company because he's got Benjamin Leuchter tucked in behind him as well. So time to get busy, you would have to say. But that McLaren, yeah, starting to make progress. By the way, they're outside the top 10 and just moved up a bit. Now we're getting some news coming through about the number 23 Komotta Racing BMW. Remember, it came into the pits and then pushed into the pit garage, and we'll let you know very soon what exactly is the problem.
As indeed has Christian Cronjes in the Walkenhorst Aston Martin. He's in the pits from 10th. So the first of our front runners, if you like, that's pitted.
Yeah, he came in from about 6th place overall. So yeah, he's in there, and again, that's the first interesting tactic. Komotta Racing, their BMW had a problem. That's why it came in after 3 laps. After 5 laps, the lap they're on now, we expect some to come in, yes, and others to go on for one further lap.
Part of why I mentioned Christian Cronjes, because it's in at 4 laps.
Indeed.
Yeah, which is odd for our calculations, isn't it?
100%. That's why I said it was the first interesting tactic in the race. That Pro Sport Mercedes coming under further pressure. It's one with a very unusual yellow and pale blue across the last handful of years, and the Mercedes is under a huge amount of pressure now. The McLaren that went past has put about 2 seconds on it very, very quickly indeed. So right now, Stephen Palette still really learning the Mercedes. He's learning it in probably the hardest circuit in the world in which to get accustomed to a car, because you've got a twist and a turn at every single juncture around you, and in a straight line. It lost out to the McLaren. It's under huge pressure now, and the car behind is a car length behind. No, half a car length, quarter of a car length. Gets a bit too close in the corner, has to back out. And it's sad this early in the race to see any car having a problem, in fact at any stage in the race, but we've got an Aston Martin in the pits as well. Walkenhorst Motorsport. It's not Christian Cronjes' car that's being wheeled back, is it?
I think it is, yes.
Okay, well that would explain. So that's got a problem as well.
Lap 4, yeah.
Yeah, because it pitted, and I said that's a lap or 2 laps early. They're looking under the rear end of the car. You're an Aston Martin man, so what on earth are they up to under there? 3 mechanics under the car. Well, it looks like the bodywork's come away, the splitter maybe, unless they removed it to get to something else underneath.
Probably the transaxle. Being a rear gearbox on one of those. I mentioned about Team Rennsport earlier having an issue. Their day isn't working out for them because one of their other cars, which is a Toyota Supra number 524, is currently stationary at almost flag Flugplatz again. Okay, right, we've got to the bottom. Thank you very much, Twally.
the black and orange warning flags, the number 23 Gamotta Racing BMW, issue with the fire extinguisher. There is a box in the car which should be active. It has a blinking light, which was not blinking, and they need to repair it.
Fair enough. For their own safety.
So where is that light that's blinking? Is it somewhere you can see outside, or is it in the cockpit and the driver noticed? I'd suggest the driver's probably a bit busy. So it must be something that can be, there must be a light that can be visible and that race officials have picked up, and they cannot be back in the race until that is fixed. So they are plummeting down the order. Luckily for them, it's a 6-hour race. If it costs them a lap, you know, that is an enormous amount, 25 kilometres, but they've got a chance to keep on going and try and pick it up. But your point, of course, very well made, is the fact there are no safety cars, so you don't get, you know, where you can almost get a lap back and then get a lap back. But that is the situation. So a problem for an Aston Martin. That's Walkenhorst number 35. Christian Krohn is driving very nicely, as per normal, in 5th position. Came into the pits. We thought it was a good lap, maybe 2 laps early. Then it turns out it was a problem. For the number 23 Gamotta Racing BMW, problem with the light not flashing to prove that their fire extinguisher is active, so that has to be sorted. It's probably one of those things called an electrical problem, and they're not the easiest to fix in the blink of an eye. The reason I said flick, I was looking at a car with the headlights being flashed. This is just at the tail end of the top 10. Someone has run onto the grass just as you approach Tiergarten to kick up. Well, it's not grass, it's just dust. Dust in formation. Stephen Pellett has been hunted down, and an Audi has just worked its way past him, so those positions keep on changing. But for Stephen, for so long a driver of an Audi, again, these GT3 cars that run in the top class, they're all different to drive. They're all supposed to have a similar lap time, but I guess he's just settling in, because they have discernible differences. And in fact, for the Mercedes AMG GT3 model, it was made to be very, very useful and easy to handle, as Benjamin Leuchter just went past him, for the AM driver. I'm not saying Stephen Pellett's an AM driver, but the whole point of that car, we've talked about this quite a lot over the years, is about 10 years ago, a lot of the front-running cars had all-pro driver lineups, and the cars that suited them didn't always suit the driver they were running if they happened to be paired up with an AM. And Mercedes was the first manufacturer to go, you know what, we actually would get more out of this, the drivers would get more out of it, if we had a car that the AM driver could feel comfortable with. Because the last thing you want to do, the person who's probably financing the team, is to go, I just can't handle this, it's just too twitchy for me in whatever way or form. I've got to have something that I feel I can improve in, because anybody who goes racing is by nature a competitive person, and you're all racing against your own ability and your previous best. So if you have something that you feel you can make steps forward with, a driver helping you out, a pro driver, then that's what you want. One of the BMWs, one of the many production class BMWs, has pulled to the side of the circuit within the Grand Prix loop. It's just before you get to the compression, before you rise up to the Vidal chicane towards the end of the Grand Prix section, and that has been parked up close to the barriers. I don't think we haven't got a slow zone yet, which is good news. Maybe they can get that out of the way.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see what I thought I was going to say, 655, but we haven't got a 655. That would make it more difficult, wouldn't it? Just create a car for it. It is exactly where you said it was, but we'll come back to that. We'll have a fun that adds a bit more, and we'll come back to it. Yeah, you point about the Mercedes making the car amateur, if you like, friendly, or less pro, if you wish, is exactly that, to incentivize people, because they want to do it. You want them in racing, and it's one of the things, and it's so much better. You have a driver coach then that you're probably a pro driver, can encourage them, they can work with somebody. You don't want too much of a disparity. There's always going to be the top people, but one of the skills of a top driver when they do driver coaching is getting their, let's say, less professional driver, so a businessman that's made the money, but very, very serious. We've seen a lot of them across the sport in this, and World GT Challenge and WEC, etc. They are not that far off some of the pro drivers.
Okay, and again, thank you to people in the pits. Just going to throw, before we break away for ads, the axle frame for the Aston Martin has come loose
Right, so that's good. So basically, those axles have got a transaxle, and they have what they call a carrier. So it's basically it's a frame at the back that holds the transaxle, and then all the rear suspension hang on it. So if that's come loose, that's suboptimal.
It's suboptimal, and there is possibly a reason for this, because that did have some damage from an accident in qualifying. And again, I'll just reiterate that you don't have an enormous period of time between qualifying ending and the start of the race, and it may be something they just didn't identify. I mean, you wouldn't have sent the car out if you thought it was loose.
Of course not.
It's you know, that's not the nature of the game.
But it may not be that easy just to tighten it up either. It's something that you've got to strip things out. So you've got to take the suspension off and gearbox out to tighten the frame, then put it back. That's not going to be something they're going to do in a matter of a few minutes.
Yeah, so struggles there for Walk & Horse Motorsport with their Aston Martin, and Gamotta Racing with their BMW. No struggles at all for Lucas Stoltz. He's leading for Mercedes and Winwood Racing.
Dein Online-Shop für Simracing-Hardware und Zubehör. www.simraceshop.de. This place leaves no room for error. No escape. Just asphalt, adrenaline, and the legend. The green hell never forgets. It never forgives. Every corner, a fight. No room for weakness. The Nordschleife is no place for empty promises. It is the place where they are delivered. Engineered for the green hell. Official partner of the NLS.
Liebe Fans,
Lovely fans,
besucht uns auf unseren Social Media Kanälen.
follow us,
Auf Facebook, Instagram,
YouTube und TikTok. Willkommen bei der NLS.
Lucas Stoltz started the race on pole position. He has not been passed. He got a better start than Frank Stippler's Mustang, but that's very... And at the end of 6 laps, what happens? The drivers come in. Those without problems, they've all gone for the standard pit stop, or have they all? Well, I'll tell you what, Stoltz has gone past and dived into the pits, but Stippler and Christian Zulu are going to come in after 7. So is that a wise move to pit at the end of 6? Will 7 be better? Where's the traffic? How's it going to lie in front of them? We will see. So Stippler up to second place, Christodoulou up, from second to first in the Mustang. Mercedes of Adam Christodoulou, Era Motorsport Mercedes, get used to that. Other cars still diving in behind, and I think that's Dan Harper diving in the pits, car number 1. That was the one that was working its way up to 7th place, had been gaining not just time, gaining position, but note that down in your notebooks. Car number 1 has dived into the pits. So has Ben Bunagel from Ulna Motorsport, car number 1, 2, 3. Anybody else who's continued, they will not be going any further at the end of this lap, but I don't know. How do you divide a 6-hour race? That's the eternal question. And I suppose one thing that makes it simpler this weekend is the fact the weather is dry, there's no threat of rain, and it does make it easier. But so many races on the Nordschleife, you see a storm approaching. Is it going to be somewhere that's going to hit the race? Talking of hitting things, Adam Christodoulou's car, the Era Motorsport Mercedes, in second place, something was loose. It looks like it was only gaffer tape, but something then blew off the car just before he reached the chicane.
Oh,
he's had
damage,
front left-hand corner damage. So he's hit something or someone. Hopefully it was something, not someone. Could have been a barrier, could have got close to a car in front of it. Wasn't close enough to Frank Stippler to have touched the Mustang. Actually, hold on, in the background of the shot, I just think the Mustang has maybe had a moment, because the Mustang came through the corner, and I say the corner, Sabine Smith's curve, further down the order. Well, did something happen in the Mercedes arena? The gap between them on the start-finish line as they crossed it was Stippler in front, 1.1 second to the good of the Mercedes of Era Motorsport and Adam Christodoulou. And I'm just double-checking. I don't know if you can see on the tracker map, but at the moment going through Hatzenbach is the Mustang. I think maybe there has been a moment. I need proof of this, but certainly we suddenly saw, going into the compression before you rise up to the chicane, we saw the Mercedes with front left-hand corner damage. Was there a move made in the little cut-through? When you've gone through the Mercedes arena, the next corner, turn 5, you're turning to the right, going through a gap in the barriers, so you don't do all the Grand Prix loop. Or have I read this wrong and spotted a second car? That is interesting.
Well, the number 64 Hauptstraße Racing Ford Mustang with Frank Stippler at the wheel is currently just coming down to Fuchsora, so that's okay and continuing at pace.
Big question is the number 23 Mercedes in front or behind, or if I spotted a car with a similar livery? The Mustang is white with the blue stripe, 2 blue stripes up the middle, so the American racing livery, national colours. But what caused the damage on the front end of the Era Motorsport Mercedes? The Mustang suddenly going a little bit slowly and just being passed by Nico Menzel. So this is starting to become a bit more of a story.
At Metcalfeld now coming up to
that
Kallenhardt.
Mustang is slowing. 64 Mustang is slowing. Frank Stippler is slowing. Frank doesn't do slow unless there's a very good reason. I can't see any damage as yet. Need to see the rear end of that car, see if it's being given a bit of a push. We know there's damage on. Oh, he's definitely slowing, because when Cup 2 class Porsche Caymans catch him and go around the outside, maybe there's a puncture. Maybe he's got a puncture from that and he's having to drop his pace.
Yeah, right rear damage.
Right rear tyre.
Right rear damage.
Okay, that reflects absolutely where front left Mercedes.
Correct.
Well done, Clouseau. I think we're getting there.
I was going to.
So, start of the lap, 1.1 seconds between Stippler and Christodoulou, and contact at a point at which the Mercedes, the Mustang was slow out of a corner. There was no, it didn't come where I expected to find it. And so by the time we next saw the Mercedes, it was in the lead of the race. The Mustang's going very slowly. There's damaged parts on the Grand Prix loop, still luckily being missed by most people. It's like the liner of a wheel arch. Right now, the Renazzo Motorsport Lamborghini's got very close to it and is going past. But the fact that Frank is limping in, Cup 2 class Porsches going past production, not quite production class cars, but other cars of a lower performance category are just monstering their way past. So this, of all the places you don't want to puncture, is on the Grand Prix loop. You've got to do another 24 kilometres on a flat tyre.
Now, people like Christodoulou and Stippler do not run into one another, but what happened there is, I think Stippler had a problem and was slow, and that caught Adam Christodoulou out as he came on the exit of that corner, completely caught him out, and just didn't expect Stippler to be coming off the corner quite so slowly, and just clipped him. He did swerve right. avoid him, jeep to the right, should we say, rather than swerve, and wasn't quite able to do that. So I think that's just a genuine racing incident caused by Frank Stippler having an issue with this Haupt Racing Mustang. So that's going to come back to the pits. It's got a long, long way to come back, nearly all the way to come back, as Bruce has just said. That will then reappear in the pits. There will be, I'm not sure there's even actually puncture damage. I think there's something more fundamental on there. If it's been clipped by a Mercedes, it could well have put the suspension out and all sorts at the back there. It could be a little bit more fundamental.
Yeah, but
debris coming off it now.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's not slow. Well, the puncture is slowing it, but it didn't slow because of the puncture. It slowed because something was wrong with the car. You could say, oh, did Frank just miss a gear going out of the corner, so he's trying to accelerate away?
Disintegrating this car. I mean, Frank's bringing it back at an original pace. One of the hardest things for a race driver to do is to bring a damaged car back. You know it's wounded. You've got to bring it back, but you've got no idea of what it is. So the team will try and be telling you, and we've got a fantastic Headicam shot now, which I'm sure the team are looking at as well, and they'll be reporting back to Stippler in the car saying what it is. But of course, to drive back at, if you have to do 60k, you have to do 60k. If there's no code 60 area, any driver, certainly the likes of Frank Stippler, will try and get that car back to the pits as soon as possible to get it repaired as soon as possible. The danger with that is you can create more damage and more work for the team trying to do that. You think you're doing the right thing, but racing drivers, particularly like Frank Stippler and Chris Adula of that ilk, they're not wired to drive slowly.
No,
bring it back carefully, and they're saying explain carefully.
Right, just getting messages. There's been a bit of a oh gosh, oh dearie me. Unfortunate incident there. Car number 5 went down the inside. Gabriele Piana, the Black Falcon Team EAE Porsche. Remember that it came into the pits before the start of the race, so that was another one working its way up, and it unfortunately pitched into the side of a production-based car, and suddenly very busy out on track. And I'm also getting news that car number 26, which is the Duer family McLaren, that has had contact with Schwalbenschwanz, so just before they get onto the Dottinger Ruhr.
Yeah, with 885, is that?
Yeah, 885, yes, which is a BMW M2.
M2, yes.
Okay, and suddenly getting sort of really quite busy. So, and I think it was car number 450 or something like that. It was contacted by Gabriele Piana. Oh, I mean, Frank Stippler can hardly drive in a straight line. He's having to drive around out of a corner with the tail starting to come around. That rear suspension is failing on him at the moment on the Ford Mustang, because the nose turns in and the tail just doesn't really want to follow at all. So having gone around the carousel, mind you, that probably didn't help either, putting all the extra force on that right rear corner of the car. He's done that bit and he's got to work his way towards the end of the lap. But what was looking so good, I mean, the Haupt Racing team just gets better and better with its Ford Mustang, and it was running in second place, comfortable in there, qualified second, but right now it's the slowest of slow laps for Frank Stippler there.
Yeah, it's the, I can't remember, with the car that was hit, the 450 you said it was? It was hit, the one that always looks like an Alpha to me, because it's got the 1990s Alpha replica touring car.
I don't think there is a 450, but might be 470. Anyhow, I'll work out what it was. But yeah, oh dear, and now we've got a car sitting sideways across the track trying to work out where it was. So these are suddenly trying times. We've got a car driving around, the Mustang that's A, going slowly, B, struggling to get around corners, C, has been dropping a bit of debris. That's limping its way along the Dottinger Ruhr, or will be shortly, to get out of the way. And suddenly a flurry of other moments making life a little bit busy. The Era Motorsport Mercedes into the pits for that front left-hand corner damage, driver out, and really it has been quite a big hit, more than I thought. The bodywork, of course, it's battered and tattered, but it's what is in behind. But we are having a driver change, and number 20 Mercedes Era Motorsport Adam Christodoulou is out, and remember that's after 7 laps, which is the standard time you'd come in. So they're going to just do a standard pit stop and try and see what they can do about that front corner. So in came Adam Christodoulou from effective lead. In from second place Nico Menzel, because he was promoted by the failing Ford. That's car number 4. Number 48 Dylan Pereira, Losch Motorsport Porsche, that is in from third. Thomas Much 7086, that's the Renazzo Motorsport Lamborghini, from fourth. And the McLaren that was reported to have had a bit of contact, car number 25. Oh, sorry, it's car number 26 that had the contact, not the McLaren. Sorry, McLaren fans, Duer Motorsport, they're going fine. They've come into the pit lane. Car 26, of course, it's Stephen Palette's Mercedes, the yellow and blue car.
So Frank Stippler is currently on the Dottinger Her and will be, in fact, almost at the end of it now to come into Tiergarten and bring his car into the pit so we can see what damage happened to the back of that. I love the brutality of mechanics and technicians working out on this era motorsport. Mercedes, it applies to all teams. The headlamp basically has been pushed back and it's causing a problem getting into the tyre.
Well, Adam Christodoulou's gone forward with the gaffer tape. You don't allow drivers anything sharper than gaffer tape.
Absolutely not. Certainly not any knives. But they were looking at that headlamp module, which has obviously got a lot to it and more than just a simple bulb and a bit of glass. There's a lot more to it than these. And they looked at the two mechanics, looked at one another. There was that sort of glance of understanding, and then it was just brutally ripped off the car, as in, we don't need it, it's a daylight race, just get rid of it.
There is a lot of gaffer tape, duct tape, call it what you will, so Adam showing good muscle there to stretch it out for the mechanics. Who one has a little blade, he can cut the bottom of it. Adam's got the other end.
And he's got blade, he's got using his teeth.
Yeah. Even better, he's using someone else's teeth. The Mustang has made it back to the pit lane, but obviously that it's listed as coming in from 13th place. That's going to be wheel round. Ironically, it's only 2 garages further along from the Era Motorsport Mercedes that hit it. No blame attached to Adam Christodoulou's. Still be interesting to find out why the Ford suddenly just didn't accelerate away.
There's the damage on the back of the Mustang, which is almost as comprehensive. By the way, just on the Mercedes, in fact, they're pitted almost 2 garages apart from the Mercedes, where that headlamp aperture was. They're now, the tape you were just talking about, Bruce, they're now covering that hole up. Why? Because it will affect the aerodynamics. You've got a whacking great hole where there should be a headlight. Suddenly you've got that going into a wheel well, and all that it might aid the cooling, but it won't help the aerodynamics. So they've basically got to cover that hole up and make sure the air goes over the wing, albeit not as efficiently as it did before, but going through it into the wheel well, it's basically just creating a massive vortex in there you don't want.
Yeah,
vacuum,
the thought of having that vacuum along the Dottinger Her when you're absolutely flat out doesn't bear thinking about. The Mercedes has gone back into the
great lift, that's the point.
Entirely so. And it could also just make the bodywork disintegrate. Frank Stippler out of the car, walking away from that number 64 Mustang, feeling
he knows,
doubt. I think he thinks that might be over and out. He's out because his stint's come to an end. But
well, the floor's off. It's a huge damage to the floor on the right-hand side.
Sharp bite. Yeah, that really is. And that simply was just not accelerating away when he needed to. So a whole new floor gone onto the back of the Mustang. The floor is shaped and it creates part of the diffuser, so you have a cathedral effect of getting the air out. You have splitters at the front of the car that literally split the air, hence the name, divided where the engineers and aerodynamicists want the air going under the car. And then at the back you have rising tunnels to get the air out of the car back and create suction down at the back of the car. So they're very precise bits of kit. It's all moulded into the carbon floor there, so they don't just replace one little bit. Floor comes off, as you said, sharp bite out of that one. That will be repaired at some other point and used again, because it will be a few 10,000s of euros, that will alone. But that one's thrown to tossed to one side for the moment, and a spare floor is brought out and put onto that Mustang. However, it doesn't tell us what other damage there is in that rear wheel arch area on the offside rear. Right, and also just as after 7 laps, the standings are the number 20 Mercedes Era Motorsport leading the race. Of course, we already had, it's the time of pit stops. It's not an accurate time to draw it after 7 laps, because some people came in after 6. Some came after 3 or 4, but that's because they had problems. And that was respectively the number 23 Gabotta Racing BMW that pitted after 3 with a problem, and the number 35 Walkenhorst Motorsport Aston Martin. So they are out of the effective running. We'll give you the positions in a short while when it's settled down. Just remember, the earlier the pit in the race, your first pit stop, the earlier your final pit stop. So this race will unravel. But Adam Christodoulou was the driver who was on board that number, the Era Motorsport Mercedes. It's handed over to Jake Hill. And that was we've got an interview coming up with him soon, because he suddenly was presented with the tail end of the Ford Mustang at the bit curve. By the way, that's the right-hander before he dropped down behind the paddock. And as he tried to accelerate away, the Ford did not in front. Then there was contact. Both have been in the pits. But let's hear what we can hear from Adam Christodoulou.
Yeah, there's a part of the Era Motorsport Mercedes AMG, and the one who was driving the car is the man standing right next to me, Adam Christodoulou. We saw there was some damage on the front left of the car. What happened?
Well, it's a real shame. Like, the stint was going so well. We were in third. Everything seemed to be under control. There was a slow zone here. on the, not the Schumacher S, but just onto the back straight. I was probably half a car length behind the Ford, and I honestly don't know whether he saw a purple or something, but he slammed on the brake and there was literally a green flag there, and so I couldn't react quick enough and I just caught the back, and it's a shame because we have 5 hours to go. And we were leading in class, we were second overall at that point, so it's just frustrating.
I hear the frustration. By the way, Frank Schippler is already coming over. Now we have to...
Yellow.
There was a double yellow?
Single yellow, double yellow, code 60.
I saw the double yellow, obviously I was right there, and then I was looking at the green.
Code 60 was on the left-hand side.
So, that was the discussion from both of them. Back to Adam maybe for sure. We just saw you helping on the pit stop. Was there ever a more stressful pit stop for you than this one before?
Unfortunately, I've had a few in my time here. I've now been racing here for 16 years. And it's just one of those, like in my head, I was like, right, what's the quickest way to try and repair this? So we got the tape and I was just like, we're kind of unlimited how many people are allowed there. So whatever you can do to help, we have a 2.5-minute pit stop. And we just need to make sure that air doesn't get in the bonnet and cause more damage. So it's a bit of a Frankenstein right now. They will do more repairs during the next stop. It's one of those, like, you do whatever you can to get to the end of the race. Like, we're leading right now, and we just have to see how it plays out.
We just heard some fragments of your discussion right now. Was that just a misunderstanding, or what was it now in the end?
Well, Frank said there was a code 60 there, but like obviously when I'm right at the back of the Ford, it's a pretty big car, and if he is blocking the view, obviously I haven't seen it. I'm looking at the green flag, which was like 5 meters away, and so I was ready to go, and obviously he slammed on the anchors. So I don't know. I need to look at the video just to see. Like, I like to think it's very rare that I make a mistake, but obviously if I can't see a flag, then obviously this is really shit. It kind of, sorry, it's not good. So it kind of ruins potentially both cars' races.
All right, then we'll leave you alone now. You can cool down, and then still best of luck for the rest of the race. Back to you guys.
Well, interesting interview there with both drivers, so fabulous from our point of view to listen into that. And one thing is guaranteed in the world of motorsport: when an incident happens, neither driver will agree. What I will say first of all on that was both drivers completely fair, completely calm, completely reasonable, and waiting for further evidence to make sure that their own opinions of it are right, which was absolutely brilliant. So that actually is a measure of what top quality those two are.
Yeah.
We said that the Mustang had slowed. Frank Schippler says that he saw a code 60, so he slammed on the brakes. He slowed down to the code 6. We said about that, the penalty that you can have for not doing that. So Frank thinks it is the right thing. Adam, right behind him, unsighted, which has said, you know, the Mustang's a big car, as is his. He hasn't seen that, and he sees a green flag, so he's come out of the corner unabated at pace and wondered why the car in front has slowed down. What I think, okay, it's taken both cars out temporarily, it's slowed them down for a bit. They will come back. It's early enough in the race to come back. One thing they said at the beginning of the show was a 6-hour race does allow for things like this early on to be brought back in. You've got 2 more hours. What I think is fascinating there is, and absolutely wonderful to see, is both drivers, neither's blamed the other, neither's got irate. They both just said, I saw this. The other one said, I didn't see that. Let's go and have a look and talk about it. And that's a level of professionalism.
I agree. I mean, what you heard from Frank Schippler was double wave yellow,
which is the beginning of a code 60.
And what you also heard from Adam was you saw a green flag further up the road. Yeah. He said, you know, that's all clear. Yeah. And at that point, what's he doing? He's going to accelerate into it, and unfortunately accelerated into the back of the Ford. But he tried incredibly hard to miss it. But these things can happen, but you're quite right. The professionalism, they've been there, seen it, done it, and actually you look at the career history of those two drivers, they're not drivers who make mistakes. No. So that is a real rarity. It may come down to nothing other than a difference of opinion. It may be simply that, well, let's just leave it out there. But you're quite right. You wanted to highlight the fact they handled it so professionally, and they really, truly did. We've had a new leader in the race, but that's the leader of the Cup 2 class, because they tend to come in a pit a lap after the front runners, so 3 of them have come in from first, second and third, but they will obviously fall back down the order, and they came in the order of Alexander Hart. He was leading that class early on, the Black Falcon team. That's Black Falcon team Zimmerman. Raphael Renhoff, in fact no, Raphael was leading early on, wasn't he, for team Liqui Moly. again, by Black Falcon. They're real specialists at that class. And 992 came in from 3rd overall. But again, now they're out the way, it's going to be back in the hands. You'd expect to have that number 80 Mercedes of Winwood Racing. That came in, remember, a lap earlier. It pitted after lap 6. The other front runners in the top class came in a lap later. So the stagger's going to unwind a little bit. But just remember that final pit stop, you would have thought that Winwood Racing Mercedes would be a lap ahead of the final pit stops for the others. And when your final pit stop is later in the race, you have a shorter time in the pits. We can talk about that till the cows come home. It's a stagger that's built in. So obviously the Winwood Racing crew decided there was an advantage. Remember, they're sitting on a lead. It was only about a second, wasn't it? 1.1 seconds, I think it was, ahead of the Mustang of Frank Stippler when they dived in for the pit stop. Ralph Aron's taken over from Lucas Stoltz, so leading the race. But just remember that final pit stop, theirs will be a longer final pit stop, but also their first pit stop, the other end, the yin to the yang, if you will, was the fact that their first pit stop by pitting earlier is shorter. By pitting earlier for the final pit stop is longer. So what you gain early on, maybe that just gives you more of a buffer. But you've got to be in that time when you're not being challenged from behind, because the car that pitted a lap later would have been a little longer in the pits. You'll be able to use that buffer. Make sure they're not close enough to use your slipstream. That's my thinking about why the car we're riding on board now. Buffer on at the wheel, clear track ahead of him. Tick. What's behind him? Well, the big question is, he's probably sitting on quite a sizable margin. You've rolled the dice. You're going, okay, we're confident enough. We're just not going to let you get close enough to use our slipstream, get into play. We will have to have a nosebleed later in the race when our final pit stop, when it's got to be longer. But maybe just with you on my tail, I can press on. Hand over to Ralph Aron. Brilliant pole position by him. Half a second clear of the best of the rest. And no traffic other than the back markers to contend with. So interesting, but the pain could be at the end of the race. We will see. But we do like it when we have a split strategy. If everyone would come in after lap 7, it's a straight race. But I do like the consequence of you've gambled early on. Will it pay for you? Well, we will find out. Alexander Hart just rejoining the race. Remember, he came in from Cup 2 class lead. His black and red 997 GT3 Cup class car. It's in Cup 2. Looks great. Lovely livery, black and red. Around the first corner, no one on his tail. So gained himself a bit of an advantage in that pit stop. The Black Falcon team Zimmerman. Zimmerman is the name large across the door.
So we've got another code 60 at Exmüller now, which is currently for the 821 entry, which is the Audi RS3 LMS, which is the only car in the TCR class, sadly. So we've got one car in V4, which is BMW E90, and one in the TCR. And that car is parked at the side of the track currently, just after Exmüller, before we come to the fast pass, run downhill to Bergwerk. So I'm guessing I think it's a mechanical thing from what I saw a moment ago, and it will be moved behind a barrier fairly shortly, and we can get that cleared.
Just such a treat to see the Nürburgring in bright sunshine, warm day, probably hot for the drivers on board, but the track is dry, it's uniform, and that is not something you can say every round of the Nürburgring Langstrecken-Series. And today, maybe quite wisely, making the most of these conditions. Instead of having our regular 4-hour races, this is a 6-hour race. And certainly different ways you can move the chairs around in the planning. So the Cup 2 class car back into the lead of the class. It's Benjamin Hites, the Chilean racer. Did quite a lot of GT3 racing the last few years. He settled down in the Cup 2 class car, and certainly just really seems to have this circuit has a particular allure to him. He's done so much racing the last few years, not to the detriment of anything else. He's just that this is one of his favourite focuses. So again, I talk about the cosmopolitan nature. In the list of well-known Chilean drivers, there aren't so many, are there? Alicio Salazar, and that's your main person, but certainly Benja Hites raced a bit in the States in Ferraris, and he came across to race GT3 in Europe, but just loves this place. And why wouldn't you?
couple of other dates for you. The number 5 Black Falcon Porsche, which is currently running in 17th with George Piana at the wheel, that's been given a drive-through penalty for causing a collision.
Well, we saw the collision.
Yeah. And also, interesting, another Porsche news. Nico Menzel in number 4 car has been looked at for under minimum pit time.
Oh, that is
currently running in 6th.
Oh, that's one of those things that, you know, whenever you see a message like that, you just look across your co-commentator and you sort of raise your eyebrows and go, all that effort, the gun has been spiked. It's suddenly much, much harder to do great things if you just made that little error. Tiniest of margins. Fantastic battling in Cup 3. You know, we often don't get treated to enough of it. 2 cars, same team, same target, but only one of them is going to win the class if they don't knock each other off because they're covered by about half a second, about to start another lap. And
more importantly, covered by the same sponsor, so it's great for them to see the 2 cars.
Am I seeing double?
It out. Get the photographs now. Quick, get the photographs now. Get the press release done. Put it on hold, but as one of the Mercedes comes out of the pits, it's one of the GT4 cars that splits the 2 Porsches. One goes one side, one goes the other. That's actually allowed the second of those 2 Cup 3 Porsches to swap places with its sister car. Totally unsighted there. Car coming out of the pits, as mentioned, GT4 Mercedes, and allowed that Mercedes has now got past them again.
Yeah, the ones we're talking about are 961 and 953. So 961 at the moment, it's got Toby Goodman, British driver, on board, and 953 has got double check. Sorry,
Toby Goodman's just gone past the GT4 Mercedes again. So that was a car that came out of the pits. That they did that already. Then Mercedes came past them again. So plenty of overtakes. Now the Mercedes looks like it's going to fall into the hands of the other Porsche.
Yeah, Alexander Fehlenbach, by the way, I struggled because I'd looked over a line. So there's actually a bit of breathing space after the change there. Toby Goodman getting through. But again, it was great. But it doesn't matter if they're the same team or anything. They're just a couple of Cup 3 Porsche Caymans having a really good scrap around this circuit. It's a car that seems supremely well suited.
They've only got one job, that's not to run into one another.
Exactly, but it's a well-supported class. 21 cars, one of the largest cars. Just going back to what I was saying, the overall NLS title at the end of the season goes to the driver with the largest number of points. There's nothing rare in that, but it's easier if you are racing, competing in a class that's got a large number of cars in it. If you happen to win that class, you get a large number of points. So say, for example, there are 21 cars and you take victory, you get 21 points. If there are only 14 cars, you only get 14 points. So if you race in a class that's has got large numbers on board, then of competitors, then you've got more of a chance, in theory, to win the title. But then again, you've got more rivals to stand between you and the title. But the fact we've had some serial winners in the NLS Championship over the years, very seldom from the top class, the SP9 class, simply because some of the other classes are better supported, and you have a sort of rolling guest fleet. But just go back. 2025 overall champions BMW M4, so in the GT4 class, that's SP10, FK Performance Motorsport, Ranko Mijatovic and Nick Wustenhager. The year before, Mijatovic won with the BMW 240i class car with Sven Markert and Toby Goodman. We've just seen Toby Goodman in the Cup 3 class. Now, the year before, Philip Leisen, Oscar Sandberg, Daniel Ziltz. That was in BMW 330i, so going sort of down the performance scale, but there are a greater number of drivers in that. So anyhow, long-winded way of saying, if you compete in a top class, you may not get in the top class, SP9, you may not be the overall champion. But matters not, it's how the rules are structured. It does mean that everyone's got something to aim for. You can win your class, but is your class tally going to be enough to give you the overall title? But some drivers have made a habit of it. Danny Brink, Philip Leisen, 3 out of 4 years, 2018 to 2021, they took the overall title, twice showing with Christopher Ring. Almost all in BMWs, almost all entered by Adrenaline Motorsport. But anyhow, that's that. But in many ways, Snowy, the top class, SP9, you're going for ultimate glory. If you win the title, that's great as well. And people like Frank Stipper have long been top in that class. but it's a sort of different game. If you're racing in some of the categories further down the table, then in the performance chart, you know, you want to win your class, and if it's well supported, you may win the title overall. But up front, it's all about getting the race win or the class win.
And it gets important at this part of the season for NLS because it is almost a season of two halves. I jest not, I know it's a football analogy, but the first part of the year is very much teams do focus on the N24, the big race. It's not part of the series, but unfortunately, that's what people do. They focus on it, use it to get data and information and intel, etc., for that race. We then have a little sort of drop-off, that was back in May, and then the regulars, the NLS people that are not taking part in all that bit, they come back, and this is where it gets really quite intense for them now. And of course, then we've got a double-header to come, and then we've got a final round as well.
Yeah, keeps us busy as the seasons change. It's just how we like it. Just so rare to see the circuit looking as good as it is today, but just so weird to have brown verges where the grass ought to be. It is there, but it's sort of resting for the moment, a little bit dormant, but it does give a very different feel to the circuit. Blue skies dotted with gentle summer clouds, but still on board. It's going to be very hot indeed for the drivers. Gabriele Piana getting very close. He's already been given a drive-through penalty, remember, for contact with another car from one of the junior classes in this, and he's still pressing on, but it's a setback, down in 13th place overall. A minute and 20 seconds down the race lead, so these things can be costly. But, you know, we keep saying this, we'll carry on saying it, is that it's the onus on the driver of the faster car to change their line to go round someone in a car that doesn't have the performance, and unfortunately sometimes there's a bit of guesswork involved, and for Gabriele Piana, who is such a Nürburgring expert, contact followed, just the way the game is played. Just going to go through the classes again. What we've got is 9 laps on the board overall. SP9 Pro, well, it's Ralph Aron, the Mercedes that started in a pole position for Winward Racing. He's taken over from Lucas Stoltz, who started the race. Just remember, they pitted a lap ahead of their rivals, which means they had a shorter pit stop to gain them an advantage. Track position potentially, but at the end of the race, their final pit stop will be commensurately the same amount extra at the end. So SP9 Pro-Am, second overall. Nico Menzel are leading at that class. He's in the number 4. Gorian RT by Car Collection Porsche, sharing with Arthur Gorian, man who put his name on the team, and Alex Fontana, the Swiss-Greek racer. They're second overall. Dan Harper, number 1, was nowhere at the start, nowhere in qualifying, up to 3rd overall. That is one worth watching in the FK Performance number 1. But going down through the classes, that's SP9, SP Pro and Pro-Am. SP9 Am, car number 786, Christoph Breuer. He's showing the Renazzo Motorsport Lamborghini with Zach Nana and Thomas Much. Thomas started the car, so he's topping Am. 81, car number 19, topping that class. It's Tom Coronel. Tom, not Tim, identical twins. To keep it simple in the Coronel household. Quite rare not to have him competing on the Dakar Rally. That's the start of the year, though, isn't it, for Tom? He always goes and gets dusty.
Yes, he does. Yeah, regular on that, isn't he? Really taken to it. So we've got a bit of debris on the right side. We've got a Porsche up on the left-hand side there coming. I'm just trying to see where that was, but there was an intervention vehicle on the right. I mentioned those earlier in our bit of pre-show build-up on the formation lap, and there was some debris. I think it was the front end, the front bumper of that Porsche, and it looks like a Cayman on the left-hand side. Looking very sad and decidedly second-hand and not taking much further part in this event, and it's just gone to yellow. That was at, I thought it was Fluke Clouds, 941 is the entry, which is the Adrenaline 718 Cayman. I was right in terms of being a Cayman. So yeah, 941 is Cup 3 entry, parked very much on the left-hand side. I think having collected barriers on the right-hand side first.
Yeah, it did sort of look that way, and you know that
driven
is
by Ricochet. Sorry.
He's on his,
yes,
ladies and gentlemen, Peter Snowden's on his final warning.
Exactly. Yes, where's my coat?
I sold it. Right, end of 9 laps, 11 seconds is the margin that Ralph Aron enjoys in the Winward Racing Mercedes, leading the race from Nico Menzel in the number 4 Porsche. And just remember that time, because his final pit stop will have to be longer. So I'd say that Nico Menzel Porsche that was driven so well by Nico in the opening stages of the race to gain positions and not let the leaders get too far away, that is doable. Very doable indeed. I'd say actually it does maybe put Nico Menzel commensurate in the lead. Stephen Paulette is walking around the pit lane looking at his very dusty and very battered number 26 Mercedes. That was from Pro Sport Racing. Had a collision. I'm trying to remember where it was, and unfortunately another car was involved, and that's being dropped off the flatbed in front of him. So I think we can work out which of the two cars. We know there's the yellow and blue number 26 Mercedes. And I tell you what, we are going to be able to have a replay of that, because one car would be the quicker car, that's the SP9 class Mercedes, and the BMW with which it had contact, they're both rather battered.
There's a lot of damage on that BMW, a lot of back end side as well. So,
huge dusty moment, and one car off the track, and it was guesswork. The Mercedes is bent and battered. But as the dust clouds settled, or even began to settle, you could see the Mercedes on the left-hand side of the track, and you couldn't see the BMW with which it had contact, because they were reported as being in contact together. But for the next 2 or 3 cars coming through, there was this wall of sort of orange dust that was kicked up as the cars rotated and clattered into the barriers and the tyre wall. Stephen Paulette is fine, his Mercedes is not. A Mercedes that is fine is our Winward Racing number 80, Ralph Aron, the Estonian. Just remember this, this is his first race back since damaging vertebrae in his neck in Bathurst. Huge accident at the start of the year. He's back. What did he do to show he's sharp? Put it on pole position. His teammate Lucas Stoltz led away in the first stint of the race and gave him a small advantage, and he's working very hard on it to see if he can stretch it. But he has stretched it. On that last lap, he gained the best part of 2 3/4 seconds on the chasing Nico Menzel. So suddenly, I said Nico Menzel's car had a slight advantage in terms of the stagger at the end of the race. I think that's actually just gone away.
Well, we mentioned, didn't we, at the very, very beginning of the show, quite literally about how dry it is across all of Europe and stuff at the moment, especially here at the Nürburgring, and the parched grass at the side, and not to light any barbecues anywhere. But that was evidence with that BMW going off there, the amount of dust that came off. I know it clattered into the barriers, but normally you can see the car, you can still see the accident happening. There you couldn't, because it was just lost in this absolute fall of smoke, of dust.
Of dust, yeah, it was absolutely extraordinary. Now, the number I want to sort of throw out there, if you pit early in the race, your final pit stop will necessarily, because of the size of your fuel tank, be earlier than that of your rivals. And the difference is about 16 seconds. The difference between first and second at the moment is 14 seconds. So if we have another quick lap from Ralph Aron, that will put him level with the end game for the Gorian by Car Collection Porsche. And as of the rest, the next car is a further 9 seconds back, so 23 seconds down. That's Dan Harper doing a double stint in the FK Performance BMW, but it's now starting to thin the field. But as we've seen with the cars that are running second and third, the Ford Mustang of Frank Stippler, the chasing Mercedes, Vera Motorsport and Adam Christodoulou, it just takes one little moment and you could suddenly have a delay of some degree, could have damage of some degree. So you just got to keep plugging away. However, something else to put in the equation. We're looking at the gaps between first and second and third. They're respectively 14 and 23 seconds back to Nico Menzel's Porsche, Dan Harper's BMW, from our race-leading Winward Racing Mercedes of Ralph Aron. Next in line,